Two, check. Two, check. How's it going, Chad? I'm here. I made it. I made it. 12, exactly. 12 p.m. Eastern. It's exactly what time it is, as you know. Don't look into that. Don't look into that. Just trust me. It's 12 Eastern right now. And it's pretty cool that I am on time because I've been spending the morning at I was at the doctor. I was getting a little checkup. So that's why I'm a little late getting started. I just got back. I went to the Wendy's drive-thru on the way back. Had some blood work done. Went to the Wendy's drive-thru and got a Baconator and a chocolate frosty for lunch. That was my lunch. Had a Baconator and chocolate frosty for lunch. I was a little lightheaded. Diagnostic, you're an old man, sir. That's what they said. Yeah, that was the thing that they said. Absolutely right. I can only go one Baconator a year. You know what's funny about the Baconator is that I think I remember when the Baconator was first released and advertised, it was almost like a joke. People thought it was like a joke. It's like, no way they're actually releasing that product. No way, you know? People really thought it was like a meme or like a joke that they were doing. And now it seems so quaint. You know, you go on Instagram or TikTok and there's these food accounts that just make the fucking craziest concoctions. Like a smash burger where the buns are little burgers, you know? And you smash down the cheeseburger on one side and you smash down the cheeseburger on the other side. And then you put more patties in the middle and more bacon and cheese and what have you. And it's like there's a whole industry of that. Like a Baconator just seems totally quaint now. Like, oh, a burger with extra bacon on it. Wow. Okay. Crazy. They asked ChatGPT to make a weird recipe and they film it for clicks. Well, there are those. They're the ones that are intentionally fucked up. But there's all these food concoctions that you can find on TikTok where there's restaurants actually making them. And they don't look bad, but they're outrageous though. They're extremely outrageous. Or the double down. The double down sandwich. Oh boy, 2 pieces of chicken and some bacon and cheese and sauce and some stuff in the middle. Wow, that's crazy. That's so crazy. How could you ever eat that crazy concoction? That's nothing. That's now there's probably a double down. There's probably a burger, a chicken burger, where both of the pieces of bread are smashed double downs. Hello, Husker. The Four Horsemen burger at Burger Priest has grilled cheese sandwiches for buns. This is what I'm talking about. The Baconator is nothing. The double down is nothing now. It's less than nothing. It's this quaint relic of another era. Compacted double downs to octuple down. No, it's we took a double down and then we put it in a blender and then blended it, and then formed the blended double down into a patty, which we then put between 2 fried chicken slices with mayo and hot honey on it, and bacon. You know what I mean? It's that kind of stuff now. That's what we're dealing with now. That's the real inflation. That's sometimes inflation works. That's right. It's like wild food concoction inflation. I've always wanted to make a burger with Johnny cakes for buns, which are small cornmeal-based pancakes. So that sounds fine. That sounds totally fine to do. Epicflation, that is what it is. This is why the McGriddle is the best sandwich on the market. The McGriddle is very good. I haven't had one for quite some time, but they are good. You know the chain Sonic? They've got a ton of inflation. Google Sonic inflation for more info. Yeah, no thank you. No thank you, Duke. I know exactly what you're doing right now. Blurp blurp. Thanks for the $5. Very kind of you.
Try a black bean burger.
Thank you, Blurp Blurp, for the $5. And if anyone else wants to support this program with a tip, oh shit, that's not how you do it. If anyone wants to support this program with a tip, please do. Like Blurp Blurp just pitched in $5, which I very much appreciate. If you enjoy this program, really trying to get those tips this week. I'm really hustling for the tips. What do I need to do to get more tips? I need to take my shirt off? What do I need to do? I'll think about it. I can't guarantee that I'm going to, but I will think about it. If I thought it was going to bring in a lot of tips, I would strongly consider it, actually. PM Trio says the mayo is where I draw the line. I have to tell them to hold it every time. As you know, Trio, I'm a big mayo boy. I'm a big mayo boy. I mean, just look at me. Just look at me. Big time mayo boy over here. I can't get enough of this shit. I'll tip if Rob keeps his shirt on. Okay, well, I probably will be doing that. I probably will be doing that.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Happy birthday to internationally famous Scientologist Isaac Hayes.
King Window, thanks for the 45 months and for all the support. King Window. Honestly, you really helped get this stream going back in the day, and I don't forget it, and I appreciate it. Thank you. And it's fucked up about Isaac Hayes being a Scientologist, I know. Did you see the trailer for Y2K? It looks funny. No, I didn't. Should we check it out? Let's check it out. Let's see if it is funny, as Jay claims.
Let's check it.
Any lucky lady gonna get the midnight kiss?
Just talk to her, dude. What's up, Laura?
We're actually going to this New Year's thing. It's gonna be a total shit show.
Oh.
See ya.
It's 1999, and we getting drunk.
In a few hours,
This really brings back some nostalgia for me. I remember New Year's 1999 very clearly.
Open up. Take us away. So smooth.
Y2K is real.
It was just like this.
Someone's on the net.
Dumbass. I use gel.
You've got mail.
Oh, shit. A Tamagotchi just drilled through a chick's head. Come on, we gotta go.
We are experiencing major problems as a result of the Y2K breakdown.
Bye-bye, human race.
We're talking global computer apocalypse.
Sorry, guys. I guess you're fucked.
They made a video and everything. That's crazy. You don't know how this shit works.
Grab a bike, grab a board, grab whatever you can.
This has been the shittiest night of my life. Fuck this! But it's cool that we got to hang out for once.
Oh my god! I get knocked out, but I get up again.
Okay. I don't know. Yeah, it looks kind of funny. Maybe not for me. I don't know if I'm the target audience for that. Because like I said, I was there for New Year's 1999. I remember very clearly. It was not like that. That stuff did not happen. Unless I'm misremembering. I do love comedy horror as well. Yeah, I do think that is an underrated genre. I was only 11, so I must have been asleep when this happened. I guess I was 17. I was 17 years old in that fateful New Year's, 1999. I remember if I could find. I've talked about this before, but for like that entire year of 1999, I was carrying around a fucking video camera. I have like a whole tape of footage from 1999 that I think has just been lost. I think it's and now I'm 18. Yeah, that's right. Some say he's still 17 today. I had a whole tape of 1999 stuff that I don't know where it is. Like I think it's just gone forever. And at the end was New Year's 1999. That was like the last footage that I did. I would give anything to find that. Do you know how crazy it would be to find that and be able to watch it on this stream? It would be insane. I had of all these like house parties in Brockville, Ontario, and like all the shenanigans and shit that like me and my shitty skateboard friends were like getting into. A whole summer's worth of stuff, like a whole fall semester worth of stuff. I wish I still had it, and it ended at New Year's 1999. We watched the ball drop. There was a ball dropping in Brockville, Ontario. We watched the ball drop. CSIS has it in case you ever run for office. Well, we don't need to worry about that. There's a lot worse shit out there about me than my 1999 tape. Believe you me. I was 25 at the time at a party and nothing like that happened. No, I agree. It was not like that. What did I do? I went to some house party. A lot of drinking going on there. I stopped by at one of my other friends' places where he liked to like listen to metal and smoke weed in his basement. Had a little like metal music, weed smoking session in the basement. Walked around outside in Brockville. Went to the big crowd by the St. Lawrence River. Watched the ball drop. We were in fact drinking at 17. I've talked many times about how the culture of binge drinking in Brockville, Ontario was, in retrospect, quite shocking. Like, quite shocking. Oh, that was you, Dick Penderin? Dick Penderin, I'm actually sorry because I kind of misinterpreted your comment. Because sometimes I have like annoying people being mean to me. So if you're trying to do a bit where you're like kind of joking around, sometimes I can't tell if you're joking or if you're actually being a dick to me. So in that case, I kind of thought you were just being a dick and I didn't realize you were joking, and I apologize for calling you annoying. I apologize, all right? When you responded, I realized like, oh shit, I think this person was actually nice. Oh, now I feel bad about that. Oh no. I was talking about Elon and like his banking thing. Look at this convo, this interaction with one of my community members. How rude. I told faithful chatter Dick Penderin, I think you should buy some shares in Big Time Annoying Guy LLC. Oh no. Oh my gosh. Oh. The jerk store called. I immediately subscribed to Destiny, as you should. Dick Pendarren, I apologize. Okay, that was some friendly. You caught some friendly fire. All right. And I don't think you're annoying. I think you're a nice guy. That's the thing. There's so many Musk dumb fucks out there. Sometimes it's hard to tell. It was good banter. Oh God. Sorry, I'm chuckling at that. Is this what you call trickle down cloud? Exactly. Anyway, going back to what I was saying, I really wish I could find that video of 1999 Rob. It was like I had like 45 minutes worth of footage of the year 1999 in Brockville, Ontario. A little snapshot of my life in 1999 for like 4 or 5 months. There's one more place where I think it could possibly still be. I'm gonna look into it. No, honestly, Joe, I looked. My parents had a box of VHSs in the little like loft space above the garage, and I went to check it, and I have all the VHSs, and I don't think it's in there. Yeah, it was like a little Sony Handycam that I had. Did you throw a fisherman in the river and swore you're with your friends to never talk about it? No, that's not what happened. No. No, I didn't. But fuck, there's one more place that I think it might be. I'm going to check into it because it would be so cool to find that. It would be so cool to find it. 25 years, a little snapshot, 4 or 5 month snapshot of my life 25 years ago. And if it was, definitely no one knows about it. If we killed any fishermen or any other kinds of people, I certainly wouldn't be talking about it here. That's for sure. So, who knows? Who knows? What else did I do on New Year's 1999? I think I took some ecstasy, if I remember correctly. I can't remember if I was drinking at that time. I know a lot of my friends were drinking. I may not have been drinking at that time. I can't quite recall. My mom handed me 3 VHS tapes. She told me one of them was a recording of my parents' marriage and one of them was my dad's porno. I don't have a VHS player, so I had to keep all of them. And there's no way of knowing. There's no way of knowing now. You'll never know. I bet Rob was actually at home with his parents the whole night. I'm telling you, I was heavily into the going out and partying lifestyle. And there was nothing else to do in Brockville when you're 17 years old. Like, what else were we supposed to do? You went and got like 40s. You would go outside the beer store, the liquor store, and try and get someone to buy you beer or liquor, or someone's parents, or like whatever, someone's older brother, older sibling, whatever it was. You'd either find a house party, like find someone whose parents were away for the weekend, or someone that's going to invite you over, and you'd go there and probably their house would get all fucked up, or you just wander aimlessly around the suburbs, causing mischief. 40s of Colt, yeah. It was, I think OE was the 40 of preference. And there was a lot of weed and drugs floating around Brockville at that time. That's just the reality. And I swear, like if my kids were like doing that now, I'd be like, "What the fuck? What are you doing? Are you crazy? What are you doing?" But they're like, that's not happening though. You know, I do have a stepson who's now like practically an adult. He's older than that now, and he's not doing any of that shit. But I would be shocked if he was. I don't believe I ever did Edward 40 Hands, but I've definitely heard of that. I was a sourpuss girl in my teens. I know that was a big phenomenon as well. I had different phases. I think the Bacardi lime, there was a Bacardi lime, or no, lemon. There was a Bacardi lemon phase. I think I would get in a phase with alcohol and drink it to the point that I almost died, and then I would not want to drink it anymore. And there's a few different alcohols that I could point to. I had a gin phase, that was out eventually. I had a Bacardi lemon phase, that was out eventually. I'm glad I'm past my booze phase too. I mean, I drink sometimes, like I've talked about before. Sometimes I'll have 2 beers, you know, very rarely more. Maybe like a few times a year I'll have more than that. Best summer drink of all time, fill up the neck of a Mexican lager with Bacardi lemon, called a Diver Down. Interesting. I think Rob should drink some 40s with his kid and listen to Bone Thugs and Harmony. Give him that 1990s experience. Oh God, the 1900s. It's so weird to think about the 1900s. What, you were around in the late 1900s? What the fuck? What the fuck? Come on. Gin is good gin anyway. It's the professional alcoholic's choice. The no fucking around, just getting drunk go-to. I think I have a weird memory or lack of memory when it comes to drinking gin at one of these famous Brockville house parties, which was the only time I can ever remember like passing out on my feet. And I still have this memory of like waking up, but standing up and like being around people and being like, what the fuck? Like, what's going on? With just a blank space for like the 3-4 hours before that. Like I still remember that feeling of just like being at a party and just kind of like opening my eyes, but it's like I'm not sleeping, I'm not lying down, I'm standing up and I'm like talking with people and interacting with people, and I was just like, where is everyone? And all my friends had left, and I was like, why did you all leave? Where did you go? And they're like, yeah, we left, and we were like, okay, we're leaving, come with us, and you were like, no, God, get out of here, and like I was like, I have no recollection of that whatsoever. It must be how toddlers feel when they gain consciousness. It is kind of like that. Yeah, it is. Call that a Canadian blackout. Yes. This was not a good culture to grow up in. Like this, I gave myself permanent brain damage, I think, from that period. Like my brain was not developed at that time yet. My brain was not fully developed to be drinking all that much. I think I fully gave myself permanent brain damage from that. It happens all over small town Ontario. I know. I guess, is it still happening? I don't know. It probably is, but Jesus. No, it is very bad. I don't want to sound like a scold or whatever, but it's like, man, shouldn't be doing that. Imagine how smart I could have been. I know. Seriously. I could have been a contender. And like, I feel like I'm still pretty smart. But definitely stunted something. Definitely fucked myself up somehow. I fortunately had a responsible drinking, espousing father, and I was too well behaved. The thing is, James, like, I was always so well behaved. Like, up until about the age of like 15. Like, when I got to high school in like 10th grade, and I started realizing like this, I could like go and do kind of like more adult stuff and like do bad stuff. And I got this really good feeling in that. I had always been like so well behaved and never broke any rules and never did anything. And I kind of I kind of broke bad a little bit in high school with that kind of stuff. And you're with all your friends, and it's like, you know that feeling. It's really, I really connected with Lindsay and Freaks and Geeks. I really felt like that. I started like smoking weed all the time and drinking and hanging out with these like skateboarder guys and quit doing sports. You know? Were you smoking darts in high school? I did maybe sometimes, but like I've said before, I've tried to start smoking many times because smoking is just objectively cool. It's cool to do. I really tried to start smoking on multiple occasions, but I just can't do it. It didn't take. It didn't take. It makes me feel like shit. I don't know if it's supposed to make you feel like that, but I don't enjoy the way it makes me feel. I wasn't the skater boy, Dick Penderyn, but most my friends were, though. Hey, Nick, how's it going? I'm on the search for a legendary Cart Knight cart. Okay, well, welcome, please, Harakiri, and I wish you the best of luck. Don't totally know what that is, but good luck to you. I recall Rob saying he gave up sports because of woke DEI. Now he's saying he gave it up for weed. Curious. Well, that was the funny thing, because in 12th grade, I went back to doing sports. I quit for a year, and then I went back to doing sports, and I was still kind of those things. I was still kind of going out and drinking and being like that. Perfect Speller. Thanks for the $10. Hell yeah. Thank you, Perfect Speller.
Some cash for the 40s and Blunts Fund.
I did go back to doing sports and playing basketball in 12th grade, though, and we had an epic. It's really like a movie. Like, it's honestly like one of the most cliched like high school movies, honestly. So I came back after quitting sports to like drink and smoke weed and play in bands. I came back. We got all the way to the city championship game, playing our dreaded crosstown rival, the TIS Pirates. And we had in our home gym the championship game, and we were down 22 points at halftime. We were getting our asses handed to us, and the crowd was totally dead. Came back in the second half, came back and won the city championship. The whole crowd on their feet, everyone going crazy. It was a very cliche high school experience, honestly. It's like this one was invented by a writer. It really feels like that. It feels like one of those experiences. And then Bobby Boucher came back at halftime. I had an okay game. I was certainly not the star of that game. I made a couple buckets, though. Was there by chance a golden retriever on your team? No, there was not. Did reformed bad boy Rob Rousseau score a winning basket? No, I didn't get the winning basket. It was a lunch pail grinder. I think I had like 8 or 9 points. It was not my best game, but I did make a couple shots in the second half. I made a 3, made a couple layups, made a couple free throws. So I was part of the comeback. Okay, I wasn't the star, but I was a role player. It was Tom Watts. Tom Watts hit like 4 or 5 threes in the second half. It really bailed us out. And Adam Broke as well was a younger guy on the team. He was in the year younger than all of us, and he had a fucking great game. Boardman gets paid. Exactly. That was me. The skater boys walk out of the gym in disgust as newly wholesome Rob is embraced by the school priest. No, that's not exactly what happened. We still went out and got messed up afterwards. And I combined the two personas. That was that year. Okay? It was when I combined the stoner band guy persona with the more preppy jock persona. And I took those two and I combined them into one personality. No head cheerleader running on the floor to kiss you. I don't think we had cheerleaders. It was a very cliche high school experience, though, I gotta say. And that's what I mean about Eastern Ontario. I've talked about it before. It's really the typical like Midwestern experience. Maybe not exactly. Like maybe the sports weren't as big of a deal, and like certain things are different, obviously. But it really did feel like that kind of stereotypical 90s Midwestern high school thing. Please, Harakiri says, cart night cart. Okay. Good. Thank you. My wife went to the same high school as Andrew Wiggins. Oh, cool. At the same time? No, not the same time, right? He was way younger than that. Or I don't remember anymore. I've lost all track of time. Let's get some cart night carts in the chat. What the fuck is that? I have no idea what that means. He was like 6 years later. Okay. I thought the stereotypical Canadian high school experience was Drake getting shot in the back. That's right. Yeah. That happened at every single Canadian high school. It's our annual ritual where Drake gets shot in the back and becomes paralyzed. All Canadian high schools have a Drake on hand. That's correct. Yes, that's correct. My typical Canadian high school experience was going to high school on a cruise ship. Of course, there were those as well. Drake would do anything to have a yearly tour around high schools. Oh my. Oh my, shots fired. I used to have so much anxiety before games, I wasn't even a starter. Yeah, I don't know if I had anxiety about it, but I definitely felt like I never felt like I quite lived up to how good I was in the games. You know, I was pretty good. I could hoop. You know this, chat. You know I can hoop. You know that. When the lights were brighter than I expected often, I will admit. I had some okay games, though. I had some okay games. We've all seen the video. Don't make me put it on again. Don't make me put on the video again. I mean, maybe I should. Maybe I should, because I feel like there's people in the chat that don't know that I can hoop. And, like, you think I'm, like, messing around or whatever. I think there's people in the chat that don't know that I can hoop, and I don't think that's not acceptable, you know? Okay, this guy can't hoop? You're telling me this guy cannot hoop. Is that what you're saying, chat? Yeah, that's very clearly me. That's very clearly me, chat. So, you know. Is it a big deal? Of course not. Smooth. That one was, chat, you have to admit that one was smooth. Come on. Admit that it was smooth. The Sam Perkins of empty gyms. I'm great in an empty gym, definitely. Although around this time, I was playing like actual games, and I was doing okay. Okay? I was doing alright. Anyway. Wrong. It never happened. No way. A total fabrication. How long would it take you to get into this kind of flow today? I don't think it would take too long. I mean, it's just muscle memory. I remember how to shoot a jumper. I think if I had an empty gym for an afternoon, I could be getting some buckets. I think that was Dirk Nowitzki or Detlef Schrempf. Detlef Schrempf was a great role player. Oh, Nick, I would love to join an Olds League. Like, seriously, if you want to do that, I would be down. I should do it. I've been talking for years about how I need to start hooping again. I would genuinely really love to do that, actually. Christian Leitner. Can't wait for my open gym to start up again. I loved hooping this year. I got to hoop again, folks. I've really got to hoop again. Have you been to a Montreal Alliance game? You mean like the CEBL? Yes. Yes, actually. I should have gone to one this year, but didn't get around to it. I went with Nick Sauce in the chat, actually. It was cool. Yeah, I've got actual friends. I've got real friends, Chad. You think it's just you? You think you're my only friends? Well, that's not true. Oh boy, so that I know that Y2K thing really kicked me off on a little bit of a nostalgia trip. A writer made it up. My friends are just out of frame, laughing too. Well, that was a fun nostalgia trip. I should probably, Rob has a whole triangle of friends under him. That's exactly right. we should probably get into like talking about, because I don't have that much time. I have about 2 hours. Like I really don't have a ton of time, so. We should probably get down to business here. Business. We're doing DNC discourse. That's exactly right. That's exactly what we're doing. We do, Joe. We do have to talk about it. Oh, anyone playing Black Myth Wukong? It looks dope. That was actually another thing that I wanted to look at. We love supporting Chinese soft power, don't we? This game has become like one of the most popular games on Steam. Is this the monkey game? Yes. So there's like a weird alliance forming of like, there's like the China watchers and some people that are like getting mad about this, and then there's like a weird alliance forming of like sweaty gamers and CCP apologists like me. This is a Dark Souls. I mean, it seems kind of Souls-like, but I don't know if the developers would agree. Obviously, there's some similarities. The alliance grows. This is just one boss fight, though. I think the actual game is in the gameplay is a little bit different.
Welcome to Black Myth Wukong. This is a highly anticipated action-adventure game releasing on PC and console. And I think it was one of the first ever games that I personally saw that was on Unreal Engine 5. And it's finally here, and it looks like it's got a lot of that cool UE5 tech in it.
Does the fucking pronouns guy like this game? I don't know, because some people are going to be like really,
PC version,
they're not going to know how to handle this.
And it looks pretty good. The environments, I have to say, are packed full of detail. I've got the frame rate in the corner there too, if you want to check that out. And I have to say thank you to NVIDIA and Zotac for sponsoring this one. They sent over the game code and a 4080 Super GPU.
There's going to be people that want to like the game, but they're going to be like the Reddit China bad people, and it's going to have to be really difficult for them.
4K. I did turn
What's the controversy about this? The controversy is that it's a Chinese game.
And graphics, we've got.
And it's already become one of the most popular games on Steam ever. So there's going to be a whole, like, all the Reddit China bad people are going to really, like, be very conflicted about this.
As far as I can tell.
They can't deal with China being so cool. I know, that's it. They can't.
So, that's what we've got. We're going to get stuck in. And gather this stuff here. Age Ginseng.
Apparently it's based on a famous Chinese novel, which I think is called, like, Journey into the West.
So I've got light attacks. Can do combos there. And I've also got heavy attacks. If you look in the bottom right, I've got a focus point there. If I do a heavy attack, it's a lot of damage, but it's going to lose that focus point. I can also charge it up afterwards. Get that back. Smash. So that's kind of how the combat works.
The same story that inspired Dragon Ball. It's interesting.
I do have this.
Mondo Michel says, I think the controversy is some unsubstantiated claims that an email was sent to influencers telling them not to mention certain topics like feminism or politics. Okay, unsubstantiated though, apparently. It does seem pretty neat. I don't know.
So here we're going to learn about the charged heavy attack.
It does seem pretty neat. I'll admit, like, I don't know if I'll play it anytime soon. I have a big backlog of games I have to get to. Like, I think I'm going to do Horizon Forbidden West first. I saw a Twitch streamer this morning playing this game using an EEG mind control headset. Alrighty. Did you already finish RDR2? I finished the main story. Yeah. I finished the main story. Really enjoyed that. I do want to kind of mess around it a little bit more because there's plenty more to do. But I did finish the main story, yes, and I thought it was really fantastic. No, I built the house and milked the cows and I did all that stuff. I finished the main story and the epilogue, I should say. I guess I just consider that all kind of one big story. The epilogue was quite long, yes. Pretty satisfying conclusion, though. Yeah, Arthur Morgan was great. I miss him. I'm not gonna lie, I miss him. Love doing chores in a video game, especially when you're going from the end of Arthur's story and then you transition into shoveling shit for a little while. Okay, anyway, let's get into some of this DNC stuff. I think we should do that. And so I want to like take a look at some of these speeches, or at least highlights from them. But I want to just point to this clip first from Ryan Grimm. And so, like, when we're this is Ryan Grimm talking about the Israel section of the DNC platform. It's not like one of these, like me and you, like one of these extremely online anti-Israel people. Like, this is Ryan Grimm, and what he says is that the Israel portion of this platform looks like it was written by AIPAC.
So the platform was released today, yes. And you can find it on my Twitter feed. I have a link to it there. It starts on the Israel-Palestine part starts on page 83, and it reads as if AIPAC wrote it.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
This part that jumped out at me here, they basically have a one-sided condemnation of conflict-related sexual violence aimed only at Hamas, which is taking, now this, like, it was done a couple weeks ago, but still, it's now being published in the context of the Knesset having an open debate about whether the acknowledged rape of Palestinian detainees is legally okay or not.
Right.
Not a question of whether it happened,
right,
but whether it actually is okay and good that it was done. In that context, to only call out Hamas is a huge slap in the face. But separate from that, it just goes on and says that, you know, the Palestinians are the ones who don't care about a two-state solution. In the context of the Israeli government explicitly, legally, officially, repeatedly saying they do not support a two-state solution. The DNC platform says it's the Palestinians that are the obstacle to it.
So don't take my word for it. Take the word of respectable mainstream level journalist Ryan Grimm about this. And I think this is the ultimate takeaway. Like, we can talk about things that are in this platform. We can talk if there's been some kind of shift in certain things with like the kind of mainstream liberal establishment. Have they started to embrace a more like populist approach? Have they tried to start to like move away from the kind of Clintonist, like neoliberal triangulation era? I think there's evidence that you can point to say, like, suggest like, yes, they have in certain respects, not in every respect, obviously. But that's the reality. And like, it's been 10 months of like the most horrifying carnage that many of us have ever seen. Like, I know I've never seen anything like some of the horrific crimes that we've been seeing unfold for 10 straight months here. And this is the reality. It's like, when it comes to Israel, there's been weekly street protests globally, across America and globally, student protests at universities, student encampments, the Uncommitted campaign. There's been a historic grassroots, on the ground operation to try and influence this party to shift in their policy on this. And what has happened? Nothing. It has resulted in nothing. It's resulted in not one shift at all. This is the exact same policy that they would have had on October 10th. Nothing has changed with respect to Israel. Zero. And I think that's actually kind of remarkable, right? Like, this is a question that I ask myself a lot, and we talk about a lot on this stream, right? When we talk about Western liberal democracy and how superior it is to Venezuela or Iran or China or DPRK or whatever. Don't you know they don't have any freedom of speech? They don't have freedom of assembly. They can't criticize the regime. They can't protest. They can't do anything. This is the question I always end up asking. What fucking good is it to protest when that doesn't actually matter? It's just like it's just a total distraction. It doesn't change anything. It's been 10 months of like intense protests. It's been 10 months of like putting unprecedented, intense pressure on these elected officials, including progressive elected officials, to try and fucking do something. And nothing has happened. It's led to nothing. That's what I always ask myself in these moments. What good is this precious right to free speech and assembly when you can protest? And it's not just about Israel. It's about climate. You can about anything, like social justice, racial justice, the police. Like the George Floyd protest, you can protest till you're fucking blue in the face about defunding the police. What happens? Well, they get more money, and then the liberals in charge, who are like the liaisons between the activists and the reactionaries, and the liberals in charge say, "We see you, we hear you. We're kneeling with kente cloth. Now just go home. Vote for the Democrats and go home. And we're going to give cops more money, and we're going to make a bunch of cop cities in all these cities." Run by Democratic mayors and with Democratic legislatures. Largest protest in American history. We got a segregationist and cop cities. Exactly. No, this is the question, right? What good is it? What good is it to have free speech? What good is it to have the freedom of assembly? I'm not saying we shouldn't have those things. But the question is this freedom of assembly or freedom to protest actually meaningfully leading to any kinds of changes? I don't really think that it is. I feel like the DNC is just the board game red flags. You have a president with the best labor policy in 30 years, but they also champion genocide. And that's it. We can talk about the ways that like there is maybe some kind of positive shift happening. There's a few avenues where I think you could point that out. But when it comes to imperialism, foreign policy, Israel specifically, the border, law and order, the cops, there's no difference between these two parties. And it's like, oh, well, we can at least protest the Democrats, but it's like, no, you can't though. You can't. What good has that done? You can't push the Democrats left on these things. You can't protest until the Democrats say, okay, fine, we'll stop arming Israel. Fine. You can't do it. I would like to see limits on the speeches of fascists and reactionaries, just personally. Well, me too. I don't believe in this immutable right to free speech, actually. There's plenty of people that I think we should take away their speech, if it was up to me. Proxy wars in general, Ukraine and Taiwan primarily. There's no way to vote out the military-industrial complex. Like that is entrenched. They're dug in like an Alabama tick, like Jesse Ventura says in the classic film Predator. Biden doesn't have good labor policy. The PRO Act was never passed, but act like it was. Biden broke a strike. This is true. I think people that are really like follow the labor movement closely, including people like in unions and union leadership, would praise Biden's NLRB and have said it's like one of the better kind of situations for labor, despite all the caveats to that in a long time. You know, that's not me saying that. That's people that are kind of deeply connected to the labor movement. It's pretty clear that free speech is subjective anyway, so I pretend it has to be universal. We know it isn't. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. But this is the question I always ask. We lecture other countries about the right of peaceful assembly. Or like, you know, when the Hong Kong protests were going on and all our leaders in Canada and the United States were saying like, why isn't China like listening to these protesters? Why are they like engaging with them this way? It's like, what, like is that what we do? Do we listen to protesters? We see student protests happening. We say, oh, thank you for protesting, students. We're going to go right ahead and change our entire policy now about the thing that you're protesting. Thank you for engaging us. Thank you for engaging in this democratic process with us. Like, no, we don't do that. And look at it. We covered all those tent encampments being broken up. Look at all the cops beating the shit out of student protesters in UCLA and all around the country, and in here in U of A and other places here. Students expressing their free speech in Ivy League schools led to their administrators getting dragged before Congress and fired. Yes. Please engage with these CIA-funded groups. Exactly. Waterloo tried to sue the encampment for $2 million. So I think it's an important question. The way that these rights are kind of an illusion, you know? This precious right to free speech and protest and free assembly and all this stuff, it's kind of an illusion. It gives us this idea that we live in this democratic system. But I don't see much of a point in having these rights if we can't actually influence our political class to do the right thing. Like, to say nothing of housing or the climate, we can't even get them to stop sending bombs that are being dropped on little kids sleeping in tents. We can't even do that. We can't even get the United States government to be like, we're going to stop facilitating the mass murder of little babies. We can't even do that with our protests. So I think that's really interesting. You know, like we've seen unprecedented just like with the George Floyd movement, we've seen unprecedented protest over the last 10 months. And nothing has changed. The Democratic Party platform that was like promoted in at the DNC is completely completely just spits in the face of any demand any of these groups have, the student groups, the uncommitted campaign, whatever it is. And one thing is that, so in the DNC, there was a panel. There was an uncommitted panel, and maybe we can look at some of that. But again, that's like, is that actually like any kind of a form of progress? If you invite like Palestinian activists to have a panel at the DNC to talk about these issues, what does that actually matter if they're not impacting the actual policy of the party that's in charge right now? Like that's just here's a little seat at the table. You can have your little panel, and then we're going to go on doing exactly what we've been doing. And then they've turned like, we need to get a ceasefire into this like applause line that people like Kamala Harris use. And this ceasefire that they're talking about is not a ceasefire. And they're still sending weapons. And we're still being asked to believe that the United States is some kind of neutral arbiter between these two parties and not arming and funding and supplying one side of this massacre. New York Times article, why won't China respond to Falun Gong request to immediately give all power to their fascist religious cult? Opinion. Why don't they just immediately give in to all these demands? It's just unthinkable. But I think this is an important kind of philosophical question when we're talking about Western liberal democracy and some of these precious rights that we love to lecture everyone around in the world. Like, I don't know. I don't want to sit here and say this is like nothing at all. Uncommitted secures first official DNC panel for Palestinian human rights in Democratic Party history. Uncommitted co-lead Layla Elabad, surgeon who served in Gaza. Party organized with family killed in Gaza by Israeli forces. Like, I think that's important that like that is actually happening. But like, I guess my point is like, what's the point of having these voices? We've heard stories from the surgeons that have served in Gaza, the horror stories. Some of the bravest people, some of the most heroic people who have served in Gaza. So if you're having a panel, okay, that's good that those voices are finally starting to be heard a little bit more, but you're still sending $20 billion worth of arms just last week to Israel while they're doing this. We gave them a panel, so now you'll please shut the fuck up about us arming Israel. Or like, yeah, we're going to... Don't you know we're on the same side? We have this panel and we want a ceasefire. We want to have a ceasefire and we want to bring the hostages home. And the ceasefire, as we've talked about, is totally fake. And once again, Adam Johnson has been going very hard on this. Adam Johnson says because it's fake. This is Netanyahu's ceasefire doublespeak. Dovish with the U.S., hawkish with negotiators. It's fake. None of this is real. It's entirely for public consumption. In Israel to get hostage families off Netanyahu's back, and two, in the U.S. to ameliorate cognitive dissonance from squishy liberals and give Dems PR cover. Like, that's what's going on here. Democratic platform blasts Trump's fecklessness and weakness in the face of Iranian aggression during his pregnancy. Like, they're trying to get to Trump's right on foreign policy and like the border and law and order. That's not good. Like, there's nothing progressive about that. These are like fundamentally reactionary positions. Working around the clock to end the civilian suffering of Palestinians and secure a ceasefire and end this war, except use the only piece of meaningful leverage we have, arms shipments and lockstep military support. This we won't do ever, which is how you know it's sincere. The ratchet only goes one way. And I mean, that's true. Like I said, I think there's differences. There's differences in labor. There's differences in climate. There's differences on like social policies, women's rights, LGBTQIA plus rights. Like, there's differences. But on some very key issues, the border, imperialism, foreign policy, Israel, and law and order, give endlessly funding the cops, there is no difference. There's zero difference, and things are just getting ratcheted to the right. There is no mechanism to push left. Not on any of these issues, no. No, there's not. And still, even when you talk about the differences in climate, there are differences. It doesn't mean they're doing anywhere near enough to actually get us away from like the cataclysmic possible consequences of the climate crisis. They're still they're pitifully far away from the kind of where we need to be in terms of steering us away from the worst outcomes there. So I think that's my main takeaway here, because Gaza has been the story since October, and it remains the story. And like all of the protests, the student encampments, the uncommitted campaign, it's been an unprecedented political effort to try and get them to do something about this, and nothing has happened. Nothing whatsoever. And that makes me question like how much these precious rights and freedoms about free speech and free assembly actually mean anything. Before we get to these speeches, folks, if you can, please subscribe and support this show. Okay? I'm a mere 34 subs away from the goal today. Should be no problem to get there. If you can, please subscribe. Make the little number go up. Get all the tiny little images. Support the work that I do here on Twitch. You can also send me a tip. The tips are very, very valuable right now, folks, and I really appreciate everyone who supports the show, whether it's through subs or tips or bits or whatever it is.
You can count on me.
But please do subscribe if you can. Help me make the little number go up. Really trying to hit those sub goals each day this week. So if possible, please do subscribe or gift subs. Join the friendship triangle. It's Twitch's only two-dimensional triangle. It's Twitch's only two-dimensional, triangle-shaped friendship access and trickle-down clout tiered reward system. St. Lotus, don't do me like that. Oh, is this a different clip? What is this? Democratic platform blasts Trump's fecklessness and weakness in the face of Iranian aggression during his Okay. Just that. When Rob doesn't hit the sub goal, it becomes a cry angle. That's correct. That's absolutely correct. And look, we already doubled since this call to action. I already doubled where my progress towards the sub goal. So huge amounts of support already. The clip cut off before he said Trump pregnancy. I did not say that. No, that's not accurate. That's not accurate. That was like a muffled microphone situation. Look at that. Already doubled my progress towards the sub goal. Pretty incredible. So once again, folks, if you can, please subscribe and support the show, give subs, whatever you can do. It's all very, very helpful, and I appreciate it a lot. And remember, you can also tip. Just the tip. I do accept those as well. I know you're like, does he accept those? Is it okay to tip? Is it okay to send a tip? And I do. Yeah, actually. I do accept those. Respect the office of the pregnant. Oh, Jesus. Maybe we can even double the sub goal again. We already doubled it once. We already doubled the progress once. Maybe we can double it again. That would be exciting. That'd be so exciting, wouldn't it, folks? Rob talking about
use the
computer
computer to mark up the size of the account.
I get knocked down, but I get up again. No, you're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. No, you're never gonna keep me down.
Joe, thank you for the 200 bits. Okay, well, a tough crowd, I guess. You know, we're going to do the Insurgents podcast tonight. We'll probably talk a lot more about like the actual speeches. There is a video here with Ali Abunimah and Rania Khalek talking about the Israel factor. So maybe it would be a good idea to just watch that and engage with that. Like we could sit here and watch Hillary's speech
count on
and
me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through
AOC's
all this.
speech and Biden's speech or whatever. But I think probably it would be more in line with the editorial line of this program to stay focused on the fact that like their Israel position has not changed one iota. Perfect, Speller. Thank you for another gifted sub. And now we're so close to doubling the progress again. Holy shit. Holy shit. You take a vodka drink, you take a whiskey drink. My favorite part is when he says, you take a drinky drink. Because sometimes you do, indeed. We're live, Rania. We're live. We're live. We're live, Rania. Take it away. Take it away, Rania. There we go.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rania Khalek, and this is a special live episode of Dispatches. We've watched 10 months of Israel's live-streamed Holocaust in Gaza. And in that time, we've watched American officials from both parties unconditionally support the slaughter, giving Israel an endless supply of weapons, intelligence assistance, and diplomatic cover, while blaming Palestinians for whatever horror the Israelis inflict on them, and doing all they can to suppress dissent at home. Meanwhile, every Israeli accusation against Palestinians seems to be a confession, as evidence piles up that Israel is intentionally burning Palestinian children, systematically using rape as a weapon, and is using Palestinians as human shields. And the media keeps on lying, and the Biden administration, while arming the killers, insists it's pushing for a ceasefire. In the midst of all this gaslighting is the Democratic National Convention, which has already been marred by controversy. as Vice President Kamala Harris faces disruptions and protests from anti-genocide activists. Joining me to discuss these developments is Ali Abunimah, Executive Director of the Electronic Intifada and author of The Battle for Justice in Palestine. Ali, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Rania. It's great to be with you again.
Well, it's great to have you on again, though sadly the subject matter has never been so great, but there's a lot to get into. And I think a good place to start here is what you've recently been tweeting about, which is this new Democratic platform that just came out. It says quite a few things, and I want to touch on some of those points. But before I let you kind of summarize it a bit, I wanted to show what I thought was quite interesting. I'm showing the Democratic platform right here. Sorry, I have a few things highlighted because I looked into it and I looked up Israel. As you actually mentioned, look up Israel. It's mentioned 21 times in this platform. And before we get into, sorry if this is giving anyone a headache for how I'm doing it on screen, but before we get into specifically what it says about Israel, I wanted to note that it opens, Ali, with a land acknowledgement. The Democratic National Committee wishes to acknowledge that we gather to state our values on land
That's
that
incredible.
have been stewarded through many centuries by the ancestors and descendants of tribal nations. And on and on and on. I mean, that were genocided by American settler colonialism.
The land acknowledgement is really something.
So Ali, I'm going to bring up a few of your tweets about this, but first I wanted to give you the chance to, since you've looked through this entire document, I have not had the chance to. Can you tell us what matters in this document related to the genocide in Gaza?
Yeah, so this is the Democratic Party's 2024 platform. So this is their manifesto. They're setting out their stall for voters to say, these are the policies that we're going to stand for and pursue if you give us another 4 years in the White House. It covers every area of policy, domestic and foreign, and it runs to about 90 pages, which I haven't read in full. I've read the about 4 or 5 pages, or closely read, let's say, the 4 or 5 pages which deal with the Middle East and North Africa, as they put it, that's the term they use, and particularly the events of October 7th. And as you say, the land acknowledgement at the beginning, the Democratic National Convention, as we speak, is happening right now in Chicago. And so they acknowledge the lands of the indigenous people, which has become a trend. I think this trend started in Australia, which is also a settler colony, and then it moved to Canada. And now it's come to the United States and is common in, I think, radical circles, but also in what we might ironically call woke circles. Like
a land acknowledgement, Koniko, is like when you're doing some kind of like liberal or progressive event, or sometimes just a sporting competition, whatever it is, on a genocidal, on the lands of a genocidal settler colony. And then you do this like brief little solemn acknowledgement that the land you're on was like under the stewardship of various tribes and various different indigenous peoples. And you acknowledge that before going through with the events. You acknowledge that this land was originally did not belong to us. And then you proceed to do absolutely nothing to rectify that, and you continue committing the genocide against those very indigenous people after the acknowledgement.
The Democratic Party, where they're acknowledging...
At an Oilers game last year, they did a moment of silence for victims of October 7th, followed by a land acknowledgement. And
I gotta tell you, it was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
Indigenous land,
Jesus.
tribal land, while they are supporting the genocide, arming the genocide of another indigenous people, the Palestinians around the world. And of course, it's important to mention that both the Democrats and the Republicans continue to violate the land and water rights of indigenous people.
I think the high schools in my city now do a land acknowledgement along with playing O Canada every morning.
Oil
Perfect,
drilling and other extractive projects. So they don't even mean it when it comes to indigenous people in the United States. That said, the sort of 4 or 5 pages in the platform that focus on the Middle East and North Africa is some of the most extreme militaristic neocon language I've seen. It's truly incredible. They brag about how the Biden-Harris administration has bombed numerous countries, how hardline its support for Israel is. And I know we're going to get into some of those details, but just that's the overall flavor of it. And what's striking to me also is how completely out of touch it is with the base of the Democratic Party. This is not a platform that represents Democratic voters even. And you look at poll after poll, survey after survey, in recent years, and especially since October 7th, and the base of the Democratic Party is overwhelmingly against these policies, against this unconditional support for Israel, against the endless Biden-Harris wars, against demonizing Palestinians, and against this open checkbook for Israel. Most Democratic voters want at least some conditions attached to U.S. aid to Israel, if not to have it cut off overall. But none of that is reflected in this platform. It's a platform for lobbyists, for big donors, for Democratic Party elites, but it's not a platform for Democratic Party voters.
Yeah, and I think it's it's really important to make that distinction, because I think the genocide in Gaza has really brought out how the Democratic Party is just one arm of the two-party dictatorship that is full-on pro-imperialism. And just to get to some of the points that you were talking about, I'm gonna pull up a few of your tweets here. I think this one's quite interesting because, the Democratic Party claims to be very much, feminist and cares about sexual assault. And we're going to talk, we can talk a bit more about this, Ali, too, about the fact that so much has...
Yeah, St. Lotus, I don't think there should be a blanket dismissal of land acknowledgements, but they've been absolutely stripped of all meaning by the liberal mainstream, and the DNC doing one is absolutely laughable. It's the same thing as any, like, identity politics, representation, women's rights, LGBTQI plus rights. Of course, all these things are good, in and of themselves. But when they're like adopted by these very like liberal or status quo political machines in order to kind of like whitewash their own imperialism and their own chauvinism, then I think that's something that needs to be criticized. It doesn't mean that like acknowledging that these lands are stolen and our country is found on genocide is a bad thing in and of itself. It's just, it is kind of bad when we're doing that while continuing and perpetuating this same genocide.
Come to light about what Israel is doing to Palestinians. There is evidence on video of Palestinian being gang raped by Israeli soldiers. And that's one of many instances, given what Palestinians have endured since October 7th. And that's not even to mention how Israel has used rape in the past as a weapon. But they've systematically been raping Palestinians, in some cases to death. The platform doesn't mention that. I'm just going to say what your tweet says. You said, well, the Democrats' 2024 platform definitely seeks to perpetuate Israel's genocidal October 7 mass rape hoax. It's interesting the platform doesn't use the term rape, but rather the broader, vaguer term conflict-related sexual violence, which in UN definitions is not the same. What this indicates to me is that Democrat thinking is something like this. We definitely want to spread this poisonous, genocide-inciting, anti-Palestinian lie, but we no longer think we can get away with specifically alleging rape because there's no evidence for it. And then you highlight the part where they mention exactly what you quoted about sexual violence. But again, none of this even touches on what we've learned that Israel's been doing to Palestinians. So I'm not sure if you'd like to add to what you tweeted there.
Yeah, let me just, before I focus specifically on the rape and sexual violence aspect, they have this whole section which is titled Response to the October 7 Hamas Attack on Israel and Next Steps to a Lasting Peace for Israelis and Palestinians. And no surprise to anyone, it portrays October 7th as this dastardly, evil act by Palestinians that use the term gruesome violence. And then in talking about the accusations against Palestinians are always very specific and very lurid. But when it comes to what happened since October 7th, I apologize, I'm old school. I have to print things out.
I love it. Yes, yeah. Yes, he brought the receipt.
Yes. So when it comes to everything that has happened to Palestinians after October 7th, nobody, we don't know who did anything. It's like the language is always extremely passive. So some examples, they say, many vulnerable civilians are suffering deadly consequences of the Israel-Hamas war. Residents of Gaza have been displaced and food insecurity has been severe. So they don't say who cut off the food. Remember, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav
It's interesting how that works, isn't
announced on October 9th, 2023,
when we
cutting
can
off
be
all the food,
specific and
the
when
water,
it's
the
very
electricity,
vague.
the fuel, the medicine, to the human animals in Gaza. 2.3 million human animals, according to Yoav Gallant. But of course, none of that is mentioned in here. We don't know the amount of civilian deaths and suffering. Well, we know that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have provided and are providing the baby buster bombs to Israel. But they portray the Democratic Party role in this as entirely positive. Quote, the administration has worked relentlessly to deliver food, medicine, and other aid to the people of Gaza and to set the conditions for the reconstruction of communities in Gaza that have been devastated by the war. No, they haven't. What they've done is they have devastated Gaza with their bombs supplied by the Democratic Party administration. Now, when it comes to the sexual violence, Rania, I don't know if you can click on the link that is in my tweet there. That links to an article from the Electronic Intifada that I wrote a couple of weeks or months ago about how Kamala Harris herself hosted a screening at the White House. This was in June, of the totally fraudulent film featuring.
And we watched clips of this, and it's insane. This Sheryl Sandberg documentary, insane.
The mass rape hoax, the lie that Palestinians, and if you scroll down, you see some of that just, I detail this in the article at the Electronic Intifada, how this whole film and the claims of mass rapes are a total lie and fabrication. And we've covered it there. We have actually an hour-long segment at the Electronic Intifada meticulously debunking the Sheryl Sandberg film and showing that to this date, there is not one single documented case of rape on October 7th. Not one. No first-hand accounts, no credible eyewitnesses, no forensic evidence, no identified victim living or dead. And what the Democratic Party says in this platform, I think the wording is very careful, and I pointed this out in my tweet that you showed earlier. They say that President Biden and Kamala Harris denounced Hamas's brutal attack on Israel on October 7th, condemned the gruesome violence, including conflict-related sexual violence, demonstrated by Hamas, and made clear that the United States wants to see Hamas defeated. What's so interesting there, and I pointed that out in the tweet, but just to emphasize it for those who are listening, they don't use the word rape anywhere here. They don't use the word rape. Why is that significant? Because according to the United Nations, rape is different from conflict-related sexual violence. The term conflict-related sexual violence is a broader and vaguer term that includes stuff that is far, far short of rape. I don't want to minimize any of it, but far, far short of rape. So it includes things like, for example, and this is from the UN report that was published by Pramila Patten, that Hamas published videos of Israeli women wearing very revealing clothing. And they consider that conflict-related sexual violence. Now, you can say, oh, well, that's a terrible thing, but that's not rape. That's very short of rape. So what this tells me is that the Democratic Party said, okay, we want to keep pushing this fake narrative of mass rapes that justifies the Israeli genocide and justifies our support for it. But at this point, we know we can't say rape because the evidence isn't there. So we'll just go with this very broad, vague term that most people are not going to know is different from rape. And that just shows the real duplicity. And then, as you pointed out, Rania, in contrast to the total absence of evidence for any rapes on October 7th perpetrated by Palestinians against Israelis, the horror stories that are coming out of Israel and Gaza now in terms of Israeli sexual attacks and rape of Palestinians against men and women, systematic, is just shocking. And this includes reports from UN investigators, human rights groups, including a major report that just came out from the Israeli human rights group, B'Tselem. And even the Israeli authorities have had to acknowledge this because about 2 weeks ago, they arrested 10 soldiers. The Israeli military prosecutor arrested 10 soldiers accused of gang raping a Palestinian detainee so violently that he had to be hospitalized and had to have surgery. And the injuries were described in detail in the Israeli media from the doctor who treated him, and utterly gruesome stuff. And as you pointed out, there is a video of this gang rape taken from CCTV in this concentration camp.
This shit is so horrifying.
Where the soldiers actually use shields, riot shields, to try to shield the rape, the sexual attack from the camera.
Actual video evidence with actual victims and actual victim statements and physical evidence.
Those arrests sparked riots in Israel.
Like Ryan Grimm was pointing out in that clip earlier, all the shit about like Israeli sexual violence towards Palestinians, it's not a question of whether it happens. There's no debate. There's zero debate about whether this happens. The debate in Israel has been like, yes, of course it happens. The debate is whether it's okay and good and legal to do, or maybe not so much. Like there's zero question and no mention of that whatsoever in any of the talking points that the Democrats are using to describe this stuff.
Right to rape riots. Right to rape riots.
Where the Israeli public was saying, we will not tolerate our brave soldiers being held to account for raping Palestinian prisoners because we support those rapes. And that was confirmed in a poll that came out this week from the Israel Institute for National Security Studies, which found that 65% of Israeli Jews believed that even if there was strong evidence that these soldiers had committed this gang rape, that they believed that the worst thing that should happen to them is discipline at the military command level, so a reprimand from their senior officer and not any kind of criminal prosecution. So Israel, the support for rape of Palestinians is very broad, and that's in the face of this evidence. And none of it has been mentioned by or addressed by the Kamala Harris Democratic Party platform.
And you know what? I think I'll actually pause there because there's an entire expose here about this. So on that subject, why don't we take a moment to, like that was Ali Abunimah setting that up, but there's an entire news piece from the UK's Channel 4 about news of abuse on Palestinian detainees in Israeli prisons. So I guess remember this when we think about that DNC platform that exclusively frames both the violence and sexual violence coming from one side and then is super ambiguous about it when it comes from the other side. Like nervous this is going to... I don't know what kind of footage is in here. I guess we're going to see. But I think we should probably watch this as well. Like shit, without even any further details. Like, look at this image. Is there any confusion about who's the party that is like committing the violence and who's the party that is exerting this kind of like colonialist control and violence over the other people? Are the good guys in this picture? The guys with the guns? You know? Is that who we're supposed to be cheering for? Is that who we're supposed to send billions of dollars to every single year? Like, it's really fucking clear. We should know about this by now. We've all been watching World War II movies since the 1950s, pretty much. Please, people just wipe this away by saying they're all Hamas. Well, and I get that, as Dakadoon, you're absolutely right. But like, the whole thing about international law is you're not supposed to have shit like this going on, regardless of who the other people are. That's the whole point of having these kinds of rules. Like the Nazis the Nazis did this to people, including obviously many Jewish people, but the Nazis were not treated like this. They were kind of treated like this by the Soviets, but they were rehabilitated by the Americans in the West. Did you see the one headline? Kamala's campaign of joy is the best way to fight fascism. Like, I'm sorry, like it's impossible to even take that remotely seriously as long as this stuff is still going on.
Thousands of Palestinians have been detained in Gaza, taken away by Israeli forces to prisons and military bases, accused of links to Hamas. Some will be fighters, but many are just civilians. Those released allege horrific torture.
لما مسكتني من خصياي ومن بشري وجرحتني في ايدها فأظفرها وغرزتهم في بشري من كتر ما صرت أصرخ صرت عض في السلك الله عزك زي الكلب.
We've been investigating allegations of widespread sexual abuse, a war crime. We've spoken to half a dozen former prisoners.
بس لا هو طرفة هيك خملها زي هيك القد حديد لما تفتحها زي هيك ويحط لك إياها جوا بخلي مخك يطلع.
On social media, Israeli soldiers have openly mocked their captives, posing for selfies alongside them.
And I'm sorry, but these are the kind of people that were at that Nova
they
music
to have
rave.
done far worse.
I'm sorry to say.
This
sorry to
is
sound
leaked
insensitive.
CCTV video of what Israeli military police allege.
And the fact that this is even
detainee
being talked about in like mainstream media in the West is like shocking, because this is normally the stuff that they ignore. It's gotten so fucking horrible that you even have mainstream media talking about this now. You know? And still nothing's happening though. That's the really insane thing about it.
being sodomized as he's hidden from the view of security cameras by riot shields. The arrest of a group of soldiers accused of involvement has outraged Israel's powerful far right. A furious mob gathered outside the base, Israel's most notorious detention camp, Side Taman, calling for the soldiers' release. For many Israelis, these protesters are dangerous extremists, but amongst them are senior members of Prime Minister Netanyahu's government.
שלחיילים והלוחמים בשטח, אתם צריכים להבין, מחבלי הנוח'בות שאנסו, טבחו והתעללו בבני עמנו, מצאו שיטה חדשה, הולכים ומתבכיינים ומשתנקרים שאיזה חייל נגע בהם.
What happens in Side Taman is murky and secretive. These photos by a whistleblower give a rare glimpse.
This shit is so disturbing.
Detainees bound, blindfolded like this at all times. We spoke to the man you see here. Ibrahim has now been released back into Gaza. He was taken away by Israeli soldiers from a hospital where his children were being treated without explanation, held for 8 months at multiple sites. This photo, he says, was taken whilst he was being punished for trying to help another sick prisoner.
العقاب انك تقف على القدير بالساعتين تقف ضلك واقف زي هيك بهاي الشكل رافع ايديك بدك اساعدك.
When Dan Blazarian sounds like a scholar talking about this, you know, the country is going to be Wasreal within 10 years. I'm seeing in the UK especially a lot of like media figures who gleefully hopped on board the Jeremy Corbyn anti-Semite bandwagon for multiple years. Even those people are now talking about this stuff, you know? So it is a good example that like some kind of the public shift is happening, but the shift is not happening in our political class though at all. That's the point. The Democratic Party platform in relation to this is no different than it would have been, you know, 10 months ago.
بدك اساعدك اريحك تقول له ريحني.
The stories of torture at Gaza aren't even particularly different from what I've heard from family my entire life. No, it's been going on for decades. Like we have been doing it. Like you can go back through the decades and find these exact allegations happening in the 80s, the 70s, and beyond. Like it's been going on for like the entire lifetime of this situation. This kind of stuff has been happening.
Detainees taken from Gaza are unable to contact their families. Hardly any have access to lawyers. A controversial Israeli law means they can be held for indefinite periods of time without being convicted. Ibrahim says torture was widespread, especially during interrogations.
قتلت اخوتي قصفت دارنا اي اساس بتقول اي وين الاسرى وين ايش بعرف وين الاسرى ساقني في اماكن حساسه كان يضربني في اماكن حساسه ساقني فيها كذا مره عابت ما انا يعني لا كنت يعني اصيح
They can be held indefinitely without charge, not just without conviction, including children.
بقول له انا عيان انا مش قادر انا مريض اللي هو ايش بقول لي كلكم ممثلين انتوا شعب ممثل انت كذاب.
Hundreds of detainees have been released back into Gaza, frail, still bearing scars from incarceration. The worst torture Ibrahim says he faced: sexual assault.
طمل طبعا وانت مطمل بتبقى بقول هنا هدول بيبقوا شباب وبنات الطرف في الطيز بتنحط.
This is just a sick society.
طرفة هيك خملها زي هيك القاد حديد لما تفتحها زي هيك بحط لك اياها جوا بخلي مخك يطلع.
Like, it's absolutely sick.
5 soldiers from Sidetaman are under house arrest, accused of aggravated sodomy of another detainee in the most high-profile case linked to the site.
That's the entrance to the Sidetaman base just over there. We're not allowed inside. Even the Red Cross has been denied access. The details of this one particular incident are horrific. A doctor treating the victim said he suffered broken ribs and a tear in his lower bowel as a result of an item being inserted into his anus. But the abuse allegedly meted out
And they're
inside
praised
the
as
base
heroes. One of
is
these
believed
guys
to
has
be
like become a celebrity.
much more widespread than this one case.
The Israeli army says it's investigating the deaths of more than 30 Palestinians held here. Naji Abbas is part of a human rights group investigating the allegations of torture.
We visited a Gazan doctor in detention, a Gazan surgeon. He met at least 10 people who faced sexual assaults in the same way.
Things inserted into their rectum.
Exactly.
Do you have any faith that these other allegations of sexual abuse you've uncovered will be investigated by the Israelis?
We applied to the Supreme Court with dozens of complaints and testimonies regarding torture, violence, beating, medical negligence. But all these complaints didn't change the situation.
Human rights groups are fighting to close Sidetaman down. Only around 24 detainees now remain there. We spoke to one whistleblower who saw the site's medical facilities. He never witnessed abuse, but was horrified by the conditions.
All the patients I saw had each arm and leg handcuffed to the sides of the bed. All the patients were blindfolded, and they were basically naked, besides wearing diapers.
Must have been quite shocking to see.
Having someone handcuffed and incapable of moving around or changing their position even slightly, I mean, I think it's probably, at least in my view, a sort of torture.
For Israelis, though, Hamas's atrocities of October the 7th are still raw, and some are furious about the focus on the rights of Palestinian detainees amidst the war. These are right-wing protesters disrupting a court hearing, angered that the Sidetaman base could be closed down. Amongst the crowd, posters of abducted hostages and dead soldiers, and a simple slogan, an eye for an eye. Here, they see all of Gaza as complicit with Hamas and refuse to accept the allegations of torture.
And this judge and this court speaking about the right of these people that killed these people, that kidnapped these people. And we don't want to speak about the right, we want to speak about our brothers' right.
All the people from Gaza who've been released, but who say that they were beaten, that they've been electrocuted, some of whom say that they've been raped, are they just lying, do you think?
Yeah. Let's say 19% that they are lying.
Why would they lie?
Why they lie? It's the way of life. If you see Hamas agenda, they say...
But these are people who have been released, so presumably they're not Hamas.
I'm sure they are.
Others appear unabashed advocates for torture. This was a lawmaker from Netanyahu's party.
להכניס מקל לרקטום של בן אדם, זה לגיטימי?
כן, אם הוא נוח'בה, הכל לגיטימי לעשות לו. הכל! הכל!
Close to half of those detained have been cleared for release. This was Faraj, a farmer from Gaza City, with his family before the war. This was the moment he was reunited with them after months detained in Sidetaman and another Israeli prison. He says he was never told why he was being held. Soldiers used him as a go-between with other prisoners. Some confided the sexual abuse they said they'd faced.
يخجل اخذه اغسل له وإشي ايش مالك ايش عاملين لك يحط العصاية واللي يحطوا العصاية في مؤخرتي يعني في ايش بتقول يقول لي والله يلبسها يلبس
How many testimonials have to say this?
الكندوم فبوز العصاية ويحطها في قفاية يحط.
How many more testimonials are there have to be?
How he was forced to kneel and was beaten. His role as a helper in Sudeta Man didn't mean he was spared from torture. He describes a scene many detainees have referred to.
The most moral army in the world loves sticking things up people's asses in a concentration camp. Yes. We're working tirelessly toward a ceasefire, though. As long as Hamas surrenders unconditionally, we're working tirelessly towards a ceasefire.
اللي هو تقعد على الكرسي المفتوح ظهر مفتوح مكلبش من ايديك رجليك مكلبشين بتجيب المربط البلاستيك طول تقريبا متر او 90 سم المربط البلاستيك بيمسك المربط هذا ويصير يخبطك فيه زي الكرباج.
It's not just Sudeta Man where serious abuse is alleged to have occurred. This is an Israeli news report on Ketziot prison. One soldier remarks the conditions are too lenient. Alongside detainees from Gaza, Israeli jails like this have seen a massive rise in prisoners from the occupied West Bank in East Jerusalem.
We've reached out to around a dozen former detainees who we'd been told may have suffered some form of sexual abuse, but all of them were too afraid to do an interview. Some of them even said they'd been specifically warned by the intelligence services not to speak out. One man has agreed. We're on our way to meet him now.
Ramzi is a Palestinian activist from Jerusalem. He was arrested last year, before October the 7th, accused of links to Hamas, which he denies.
ولكن بعد 7 أكتوبر تم انتزاع كل الحقوق كاملة منا.
He says sexual assault formed part of the abuse he suffered and witnessed too.
قاموا بوضع الماجنومتر الفحص في 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 الخلفيه خلال التفتيش.
How many more stories about this before people start like maybe asking some questions about it?
من الأمام ضرب بشكل
They're not even denying it. They're rioting so they can because they support it.
هو بده يغتصبك أو بده يقوم باغتصابك أو
Still the unlimited political support, diplomatic support, military aid, and a ceasefire deal that's entirely designed around getting unconditional Palestinian surrender.
Behind the few arrests of soldiers,
I'm sure Sheryl Sandberg's preparing a documentary any moment now.
It seems
That's
the
right.
true scale of abuse is yet to emerge.
Sekunda Kamani reporting there. Well, in response to our report, the Israel Defense Forces said the IDF rejects outright allegations concerning systematic abuse of detainees in the Sudeta Man detention facility, including allegations of sexually abusing detainees.
How are they denying
the IDF acts in accordance with Israeli
These aren't
law
even,
and
like,
international
in
law
question.
and protects the rights of individuals held in detention facilities under
Jesus.
its responsibility. They said concrete
Unless
complaints
it's a Hebrew
would be
newspaper, then they're
forwarded
like,
to
yeah, fuck yeah, we
relevant
did that.
bodies, and when required,
Denying the thing that they've admitted to
investigations are
doing.
opened in cases where there is a reasonable suspicion of criminal misconduct. The Israeli Prison Service told us all prisoners are detained according to the law. All basic rights required are fully applied by professionally trained prison guards. We're not aware of the claims you described, and as far as we know, no such events have occurred under IPS responsibility. Nonetheless, prisoners and detainees have the right to file a complaint that will be fully examined and addressed by official authorities. And a dubbed version of that report will be available on our website later. Well, joining me now is Elon Pinkas.
So, okay, like that's just, I wanted to make sure that we looked at that. I'll go back to Ali Abunimah. We're not going to watch this whole piece. We'll go back to a little bit more of this conversation with Rania and Ali Abunimah. And then we'll cover some of these DNC speeches and we can take a look and see what all the hubbub is about and all the hope and excitement and energy that people are having about the Democrats at the DNC. But I think we really need to keep in mind the central story here and the fact that the Democrats have been 100% complicit in this and that their policy still reflects this, the fact that they're 100% complicit. And like in AOC's speech, which is getting a lot of really high praise, she basically falsely made this claim that Kamala Harris is working to stop this from happening, which is like demonstrably untrue. So here's more from Aliye Bunima and Rania, and then in a little bit we'll watch some of these DNC speeches.
No, it definitely hasn't. Neither them nor the media, I should point out as well. I mean, I'll never forget. I wish I actually had it on me, but I'll just never forget that clip of, I think it was Dana Bash with Pramila Jayapal, where she was like basically saying to her, she interrupted her.
I remember this too.
Months and months ago, she interrupted her. Dana Bash interrupted Pramila Jayapal and said to her, "Yeah, but Israeli soldiers don't rape Palestinians. Palestinians are the ones raping." And it's like, you'll hear that from the mainstream media. It's been crickets. It's been crickets about this. And we can go back to that. I do want to go though.
That's been going on for decades as well.
The
not just since October 7th.
I think it's important. But I also want to remind those who are watching, because I forgot to remind you in the beginning, to please make sure you like the stream. It helps boost us in the algorithm. Make sure you're subscribed to Breakthrough News. Make sure you're subscribed to the Electronic Intifada.
I agree. Please do subscribe to Breakthrough News and Electronic Intifada. Absolutely, please do that. Also, please subscribe to this program as well, and help me keep this show on the air, where I do a variety of these different things. You can subscribe or give bits or use the donate command as well. All of that is very much appreciated, and I thank you in advance.
Something else that you brought up with your Twitter thread on this, and that is you're pointing out here how screenshots from the platform, and the platform is quite long, which is why I'm not going to go scrolling through it. You say the Democratic 2024 platform is so extreme, neocon and hardline. It brags about how much Biden/Harris have bombed different countries and helped Israel's genocide. It even accuses Trump, who murdered Iran's General Qasem Soleimani, of fecklessness and weakness. And then you highlight the portions that do that. And you can, I guess, read on through these if you think it's important too. But I will say it is quite, I don't know if the right word is shocking, but I mean, the Democrats are just neocons at this point. They're doing exactly as you claim. They're bragging that Biden has postured U.S. military forces around the region, authorized precision airstrikes on key Iranian-linked targets, on and on and on, about Al-Qaeda,
that's great.
going after the Houthis, which against international.
And look at that. Look at how they phrase it. They say, in response to brazen attacks by Iranian-linked Houthi forces against international commercial shipping, U.S. naval vessels in the Red Sea and Israel, President Biden ordered military strikes on Yemen. What are the Houthis, Ansarullah in Yemen, doing? They're trying to stop a genocide in Gaza. A genocide. They're the only.
I'm trying to start this regional war. Come on, man.
Of countries or organizations trying to stop this genocide using military means, applying the so-called responsibility to protect principle.
This cart night cart got me zooted. Well, please, Harakiri, I'm happy to hear that. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for taking us on this journey. Well done.
To stop the genocide. And Biden and Harris are bragging here about how they are bombing the people trying to stop their genocide in Gaza. It's utterly disgusting. It's really horrifying.
Yeah. And this is the poorest country in the region, by the way, that just endured its own genocide at the hands of the U.S. and Saudi Arabia and some other Gulf states, and doing everything in their power to stop the reckless, wanton slaughter of Palestinians in Gaza. And the U.S. has responded, like you said, by bombing. That's the Democrats bragging about that. And by the way, they're not saying Biden, they're saying Biden-Harris. So they're crediting Harris with that too. And another point you highlighted.
Well, they mostly say Biden. I have to go back and check if they say Harris, because they do say.
Well, they do here. They do here. Yeah,
they do. They do.
Sure. Yeah,
they do. They say President Biden and Vice President Harris. In certain places they just say Biden. And the reason I think it's important to mention that is because I know that Twitter isn't real life and online isn't real life, but you get this pushback every time you say Kamala Harris is responsible for this genocide. As a member of the administration, you get people saying, "Oh, well, she's just the vice president. She doesn't have any power." Well, if she doesn't have any power, then she can't take credit for the supposedly great economy that the administration has brought about. She can't take any credit for supposedly negotiating down drug prices with Big Pharma and all the other stuff they're trying to credit her for. So they want to have it. They want to have their cake and eat it. So when it's a good thing, Kamala Harris has a say in it. But when it's a bad thing, oh, well, she's just the vice president. She's totally powerless. She can't do anything. So that's why I just wanted to point it out that the Democrats themselves are claiming so many things in the name of Kamala Harris. But when it comes to just back to the Iran issue.
Yeah, then we shouldn't care about walls at all then. He has no power.
They say they brag about how aggressive and militaristic and violent the Democratic Party has been, bombing Yemen, bombing so-called Iran-linked targets, shielding Israel while it perpetrates genocide. They brag about the extra billions, 14 billion that they helped get through Congress for Israel to buy more weapons to murder Palestinians. They brag about all that, and then they say all this stands in sharp contrast to Trump's fecklessness and weakness in the face of Iranian aggression during his presidency. So let's be clear, so no one can deny it. The Democrats are promising to be more violent than Donald Trump. More violent, more militaristic, more aggressive. You have it right there in writing from the Democratic Party. Now, what they say, this is so interesting because they say in January 2020, when Iran, for the first and only time in its history, directly launched ballistic missiles against US troops in western Iraq, Trump mocked the resulting traumatic brain injuries suffered by dozens of American service members as mere headaches and again took no action.
Wow, Ali,
Rania,
why did Iran do that? I'm sure they had no reason.
Yeah,
there's something
evil
missing
Iranians.
here. What might that be? Of course, before that Iranian retaliation against U.S. military targets,
Trump
military
tried
bases
desperately to get into
occupying
wars.
Iraq, Trump ordered the murder
And bombed multiple other countries.
of Iranian top general Qasem Soleimani, an act of war, a major act of aggression, one that risked at the time a broader regional war, were it not for Iran's relatively restrained response. And the Democrats completely leave that out. Why? Because what they're trying to do here is present themselves as more violent, more extreme, more willing to bomb everyone than Donald Trump. So they can't mention that because the contrast they're trying to draw is look how weak and feckless Trump is. He's not willing to attack Iran the way we are. So, but if they put in that fact that Trump carried out this aggression, this war against, this act of war against Iran, then then they look exactly the same. Then it shows the Democrats and Trump to be exactly the same. When the impression they want people to take away is that we, the Democrats, we, Kamala Harris, we, the campaign of joy and diversity, of land acknowledgements, we are the party most willing to carry out acts of international lawlessness and aggression and murder, more so than Donald Trump. That's the platform they're putting forward for voters.
Yeah, and just to point out one more thing that you mentioned in this Twitter thread that I think is important, and it goes to what you're saying about this kind of like leaving certain things out to fit their narrative, is the fact that they mention that Trump pulled out of the JCPOA, what's more popularly known as the nuclear deal. And they call this, they call it Trump's reckless and short-sighted decision to pull the U.S. out of this deal, without mentioning the fact that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have done precisely nothing, and I'm quoting you here, to restore it, while bragging about, as you said, bombing Iran-linked targets. It's really, really a stunning piece of work. But as we've sort of now opened with this platform and just how hypocritical and ridiculous it is, and how it shows that there really does seem to be no difference between these two parties when it comes to foreign policy, given the Democrats are so willing to try to like out-hawk the Republicans. I think it's also important to see how some Democrats are trying to frame Kamala Harris as better than Biden. Like, it's like what you said, when it's convenient for her to be a part of the Biden administration and to have been involved in their policies, they'll say it, taking credit for the economy, all these things. But they're trying to make this differentiation that I don't think is actually true between her and Biden when it comes to the issue of Gaza, even though no policy that she's putting forward, if she is putting any policy forward, has suggested that. And I know a lot of people have already seen this, but I feel it's worth replaying it because I want everyone to remember who Kamala Harris actually is on this issue. So this is, Ali, you'll remember, this is Kamala.
Folks, I got to take a brief couple moments here, okay? Just hang out with the chair and Ali and Rania. I'll be gone for a couple minutes and I'll be right back, all right?
Harris, when she was interrupted a couple weeks ago by anti-genocide activists at one of her campaign rallies, and here was her reaction.
Elected, Donald Trump intends to give tax breaks to billionaires and big corporations. He intends to cut Social Security and Medicare. He intends to surrender our fight against the climate crisis, and he intends to end the Affordable Care Act. You know what? If you want Donald Trump to win, then say that, otherwise I'm speaking.
Sorry, I wanted to play those cheers so you could hear how loud her audience supported that. And then that glare she gave, that condescending glare. And then her campaign had the audacity to basically turn it into a campaign slogan, which she said this before. I mean, she got famous for the I'm speaking thing against Mike Pence during the vice presidential debates back in 2020. Here's, though, Stephen King recently wearing this t-shirt. Kamala Harris, I'm speaking. So this is the attitude. I don't want to say everyone in the Democratic Party agrees with that, because I know, like you mentioned earlier, a lot of the Democratic base is against this genocide. However, this is the stance the party is taking, mocking and then making into a meme her mocking of anti-genocide protesters.
And accusing them of being Trump supporters. That's accusing them of being Trump supporters. So if you oppose the Democratic Party genocide of Palestinians in Gaza, the constant stream, the unbearable stream of images of bloodied, broken bodies of children blown to pieces by the bombs sent by Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, then you're a Trump supporter. It's disgusting. And then you see liberals like this. This is the horror author Stephen King, making it like, oh, you go girl, go queen, or whatever the term is about, sassy Kamala Harris telling people desperately protesting against a genocide in which the vast majority of victims have been women and children, that she is a hero for silencing them. It is just, each day it gets more repulsive.
Yeah, and Ali, the response to people like us is either this really just in your face, blatant condescension and dismissiveness, and celebration of not caring what happens to the people of Gaza, to, or even celebrating that too, to this attempt to try to differentiate Kamala Harris from Joe Biden, saying, no, she's like actually better than him. She's movable on this issue. Moreover, she's actually working towards a ceasefire and maybe a ceasefire. And Joe Biden is too. And I want to play this clip of AOC, who made her DNC debut. And she made this comment about the administration and what they're trying to do in Gaza.
She is working tirelessly to secure a ceasefire in Gaza and bringing hostages home.
Yeah, she's really holding she's really holding her feet to the fire there, Miss AOC, who not too long ago called it a genocide, right? She called it a genocide, but still supported Joe Biden and said he was the best.
She said Joe Biden is enabling a genocide before posing for a cute photo with him in their Ray-Ban aviator glasses, and also then, like a complete fool with other members of the squad going out on a limb to say, we ride or die for Joe Biden. Remember, Representative Ilhan Omar saying that Joe Biden, the perpetrator of this genocide, the one person who could stop it right now, and the one person without whom Israel couldn't do it. And I know you're not supposed to look at the comments, but there's one thing I want to say here. Someone said, oh, you can't call it the Democratic Party genocide. Yes, I can, because the Democratic Party is in the White House, and the Democratic president is the one person who could stop this genocide right now with one phone call to the Pentagon and say, stop the round-the-clock airlift of baby buster bombs. And remember how the Democratic Party doesn't call this the Palestinian-Israeli war. They call it the Hamas-Israel war. Hamas is just one political party in the Palestinian political scene, and it's not the only one engaged through its military wing in fighting with Israel. So if the Democratic Party are going to call it the Hamas-Israel war instead of the Palestinian-Israeli war, I'm going to call it the Democratic Party genocide, using the exact same principle that they are using. Now, back to AOC. That was just a complete lie that Kamala Harris is doing anything to push a genocide. But it's important. Let's take her word for that, because people keep telling us, oh, Kamala Harris, she's just the vice president. She can't do anything. Well, this tells us she's directly involved here. Okay. But the U.S. is not doing anything to broker a genocide. What it has done, and I don't want to go into the sort of the detail of the endless rounds of so-called negotiation and mediation, but what has happened in brief is that the U.S. has agreed on proposals with Israel repeatedly, back in May, and then again in June, and then again in July. And they go to Hamas through Qatar and Egypt, and they say, do you agree to this? Hamas says, yes, we agree. And then Israel pulls the rug from under it and say, oh, yeah, but no, we need this to be changed. We need that to be changed. And then the U.S., instead of going back to Israel and saying, wait a minute, you implement what you agreed to, the US goes back to square one and says, oh, well, now we have to start again. And that's what they're doing now. And all of this is to buy time for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to continue the round-the-clock airlift of bombs, to continue the murder, the extermination of Palestinians. And what AOC is doing here, it's so disgusting, because she was marketed originally as she's going to bring the ruckus and she's going to hold the feet to the fire. And what she is just an abject sheepdog for the Democratic war machine. Just like the young, hip, person of color, diversity flavoring on the brutal face of genocide. That's what she is. And she's just, she thinks this talking point about a ceasefire. We have a genocide that needs to stop now. We're not talking about, we don't want endless negotiations for a ceasefire that might come sometime halfway through a Kamala Harris administration. We need a ceasefire now. And the way to get that is through an arms embargo on Israel. And that's the one thing that AOC and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are never going to do. They have perverted at the beginning, we were all saying ceasefire, ceasefire, ceasefire. They were refusing to say it. And then they realized, oh, well, we can just start saying ceasefire too, and empty the word of any meaning whatsoever. So that's why the demand has to be very clear and specific. A ceasefire will be brought about by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris stopping the supply of weapons to Israel. And that is nowhere on the Democratic Party agenda. And in fact, Kamala Harris made a point after that rally in Detroit where she was interrupted of saying through her chief foreign policy, her chief national security spokesperson, Kamala Harris opposes any kind of arms embargo in Israel. And no such embargo is in the platform. On the contrary, brags about the weapons that the Democratic Party is sending to Israel. So it's just disgusting what AOC has become. And perhaps this is what she always was. But if there was any element of her, any hair on her head that was willing to challenge the establishment when she first ran and she was first elected, she is a completely domesticated creature of the Israel lobby and the Democratic Party war machine and the billionaires and psychopathic killers they serve.
Yeah, in many ways, she's kind of like an upgraded Obama for the millennial generation, because that was the way Obama was portrayed when he first came into politics.
More inept. Obama was smoother, but she's more inept, but she's clearly, climbing the ladder, and will probably get a lot more training and a lot more, pointers on branding and how to present yourself. But and clearly she has a lot of ambition, and she has understood, like Obama did early on, that the way you get along to go along. And Obama, from very early in his career,
have good old Rob to talk you through all
the
this.
Israel lobby, while fooling a lot of people that he represented something radically different. And AOC may not have started that way. I think Obama did start that way from the get-go. She may not have started that way, but that's certainly what she is now.
And just to bring the receipts, I wanted to show the tweet what you were talking about after the Detroit rally. This is Phil Gordon. He's Kamala Harris's national security advisor, and he's on her campaign as well. He says, VP Kamala Harris has been clear. She will always ensure Israel is able to defend itself against Iran and Iran-backed terrorist groups. She does not support an arms embargo on Israel. She will continue to work to protect civilians in Gaza, blah, 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 because that's BS. I can't even say that out loud.
It's just boilerplate at this point.
It really is. But that's obviously making clear, because the reason that had to be said was because there was a lot of chatter that she is willing to maybe support an arms embargo. So they wanted to make it clear that she wouldn't. And so, one thing, Ali, that I've seen crop up a lot in defense of the idea of voting for Kamala Harris. And look, I'm not gonna lecture people. Do what you're gonna do, but don't lecture me and tell me that I need to vote for Democrats. Because one thing I keep hearing that I find incredibly offensive is, well, don't be a single issue voter. First of all, genocide, if you were going to pick a single issue, that's the single issue you pick. I don't care about anything else at this moment because I want the genocide to end. Also, not to say I wouldn't care if I didn't live in Lebanon or if I wasn't from the region, but I do live in Lebanon. And so it's very close to me, the idea of what Israel's doing and the actual, concern I have. I feel frightened by what the Americans and the Israelis are doing because they're threatening to do it here as well. And what it shows me is that the people who can sit there and say this is you're a single issue voter don't care about the rest of the world. They don't care what U.S. imperialism does to other people in the world. And I find that to be really problematic. But moreover, I don't think Palestine is a single issue. This is like every single issue all in one. And I was wondering if you could speak to that.
Yeah, there's so much there, Rania. I mean, no, first of all, when the single issue is genocide, yes, I'm a single issue voter. Nothing else matters to me than to stop this genocide. There's nothing wrong with saying that. And morally, isn't that what we were told all our lives? We were brought up that never again, that you have to be courageous, that you have to stop genocide, the lessons of history from the Holocaust and all that. Yes, I'm a single issue person. I'm not even going to say voter at this point because I don't know if I can participate in this charade anymore. But the idea that we have to vote for the Democrats because they're somehow the lesser evil. You know, people say, first of all, when people tell you who they are, believe them. We just looked at the Democratic platform, and they're telling us we promise to be more violent, more militaristic, and more extreme than Donald Trump. So I believe them. And so far they have been. Of course, that doesn't mean I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. I'm absolutely never going to do that. But I'm never going to vote for the people who are doing a Holocaust in Gaza now. I will never vote for them, and I will never suggest anyone vote for them, no matter what, because this whole notion of lesser evil, you vote for the lesser evil to prevent the supposedly bigger evil, and this is where we end up at a point where people are minimizing a Holocaust, a real Holocaust, and I say that without any sense of irony or hyperbole. A real Holocaust, they're minimizing that as just an issue to be fobbed off with a talking point about, empty talk of a ceasefire negotiations from AOC. Oh, let's throw in a sentence about ceasefire negotiations. That'll shut them up. It won't shut people up. And my view is they need to be punished.
Hello, I'm back.
They need to be punished. And the correct way to punish the perpetrators of this genocide who are in the White House would be an international tribunal under the Genocide Convention. That's not realistically going to happen. So losing power is potentially the only, what's the term I can say, the closest thing we can get to punishment. And how do they try to scare us? They say, oh, well, Donald Trump will be so much worse. Nothing Donald Trump ever did when he was in office, was even close to the pure evil of this Holocaust that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are perpetrating. And then you have this chauvinistic America first.
I'm sure Trump would be worse in this respect. Or I think if anything, Trump would be doing the exact same thing. I don't know if there's anything really different Trump would be doing. It's totally true that he didn't do anything nearly as bad, but what would he be doing? What would he be doing that was different right now? Maybe could it be worse? Is it possible for it to be worse? I don't really think so.
Vote
possibly
blue,
the same thing but faster. Maybe the same thing without all the we're so sorry about this. Maybe that would be the difference, right? It's the exact same policy but with a little less bearing witness to the suffering, a little bit less like oh if only this wasn't happening, we feel so bad about this. That would be the big difference probably. And liberals would be protesting, exactly. Some of them anyways, not all.
Oh, well, immigrants are going to suffer.
I think you're way too generous with Trump there, Koniko.
All of this, as if they're not suffering under the Democratic Party.
Trump has kissed Israel's ass just as much as any president. The idea that he would be wrapping this up, I think, is not accurate.
That continues to deport millions of people and to demonize millions of people. And wasn't it Kamala Harris who was sent out by Joe Biden to tell the people displaced, whose lives have been destroyed by the U.S. Sanctions war on Venezuela and other countries in Latin America, telling them, don't come. We, the United States, we're going to destroy your economy, destroy your lives. And when you try to flee to find some safety from the chaos we've unleashed, we tell you, don't come. That was Kamala Harris. While they continue the mass deportations that continue to rise. But having said that, even if it's true that Americans will pay some price in some areas for Donald Trump, if Donald Trump is elected, well, why are the lives and comfort of people in the United States more important than the survival of Palestinians who are being murdered by Democratic Party bombs? Why are Americans superior to Palestinians? If the price of ending this genocide is that some Americans are more uncomfortable, I'm fine with that. That's correct. That's a price that should be paid to end this genocide. But this is a false choice that is being imposed on us, because the real choice would be for the Democratic Party to end its genocide, it's the Israeli Democrat genocide in Gaza, and for them to stop their militarism and their attacks on immigrants, on refugees, on asylum seekers, and to start reinvesting in this country instead of escalating wars, sending tens of billions more to fight a proxy war in Russia, tens of billions more to murder Palestinians. It's a false choice imposed on us by the Democratic Party and the ruling elite, and it's one I absolutely refuse to make. I will never vote for them. I'll never ask anyone to vote for them, come what may. And then, of course, you get these liberals saying, oh, well, you're going to pay if Donald Trump wins. He's going to deport you. There is nothing Donald Trump can do to me as a Palestinian, as a person of color, as whatever you want, that is worse than what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are doing to Palestinians in Gaza. And if there is, it's a price I'll gladly pay if it punishes the perpetrators of this genocide. We have to be willing to do that.
Well, I think a pretty powerful point to leave that on, right? I'm going to link the rest of this video in the chat. Please make sure you watch that. And also make sure you're subscribed to Breakthrough News and EI as well. We know both of these organizations have been doing some like really fantastic work over the last 10 months and previously to that as well. And I think this is a good note now that we can transition into actually watching some of these DNC speeches, which all kinds of people were applauding and celebrating. And we might find things that you could like about some of them. I don't know. We're going to see, but I think I wanted to set the stage by making sure we have this context before we engage in any of that, you know? And by the way, Perfect Speller, thanks for another gifted sub. And please, folks, if you do want to support this program,
you can count on me.
Look at that.
And have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Right on cue. I did the MK Ultra code word to Comrade Bushy. Thanks, Comrade Bushy, for the gifted sub. So a mere 30 to go to get to the goal. Should be no problem, folks. If you do enjoy this program, please subscribe if you can. It helps me out a lot. It helps keep this show on the air. You can't have any DNC until you finish your Breakthrough News. Well, if I had more time, I would like to do both, but the fact is I don't. I have a hard stop in about an hour, so I want to make sure to give myself and us enough time.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
To get into this stuff. And frankly, also, I need to talk about these speeches on the podcast later at like 5 o'clock, and I haven't watched them. So it's kind of like homework for me too as well. I would probably rather just stay watching this, but
you can count on me.
Brandon, thanks for the gifted sub, and thanks Spellcheck as well for the 29 months. Spellcheck, you're Spellcheck, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Spellcheck. Very kind of you. And now a mere 28 to go, so should be no problem. A mere 30 sub gifter should get us there. So should be no problem at all. And remember also, folks, the tips, just the tips, very, very valuable right now and always. Oh, I lost my little donate thing. You can use the donate command if you want to send a tip. If you got $2, $3, $5, $10, you know, if you want to tip $20, that's okay. You're allowed to do that. If you want to tip $50, $100, if you want to tip $500 for whatever, if someone wants to do that, it's not illegal. There's no law that says that you can't do that. But remember, folks, it's the only way I can keep this show on the air. If I get the support from the community, which I have gotten with, which is something that I really do appreciate over the years. This is the only reason this show is still here 4 years later, is because
you can count
there
on
is a community here that supports the work that I do. I appreciate it a lot. And I thank you. And thank you, Diego, for the gifted sub as well. I would do 30 subs, but my big time annoying guy LLC stocks are not doing well. That was bad financial advice to invest in big time annoying guy LLC. What about $24.7? Is that good? I mean, that's fine. Yeah, that's totally acceptable. It's totally acceptable to do that. And we do have a possible hype train leaving the station as well. Risk Inverse, look at that. Risk Inverse, thank you for $15. I'll even do the little dance. I believe it was Deacon Blues I was listening to at that time.
Support our Rob.
Risk Inverse, thank you for the $15 and for all the support. Seriously, I appreciate it. Somehow didn't trigger a hype train though. Can I tip you with a smile? Is that legal? It's actually not legal, no. I don't accept smiles. I don't accept compliments. That none of that counts. We're talking about currency, legal currency. Anon, thank you for the 1337.
Is this the game a number?
To be clear, you'll refuse a smile. Yes. Yes. That's right, I will. Do you accept gooning vouchers? I'm gonna have to take a look at that one. I'm gonna have to take a look at that one. I'm not sure. Bleep Lord, thanks for the 333.
Fart.
None of these tips triggering the hype train either. And also, remember, subs also good. I mean, I'm going hard on the tips lately, but like, subs also very, very valuable as always. Always trying to get the sub goal. Always trying to make the little number go up. One more gifted sub would probably get this hype train out of the station. If I tip you 30, can I kick you in the balls if I happen to ever see you in the wild? I would prefer you did not. But if you did do that, and at some point you did kick me in the balls and you reminded me of this conversation, I would begrudgingly accept it. Okay? I wouldn't like it. I would not like that. To be clear. Robert Plant said the greatest thing you ever can do now is trade a smile with someone who's blue now. It's very easy. Yeah, that is true. That is very true. I'm going to kick Rob in the balls and say I'm catalepsy kills. All these people are going to be kicking me in the balls. There's no way of me knowing who it is. There's a loophole. I think I've just unlocked some kind of like ball attack loophole. Anyone can do it, and there's no way that I can prove that I didn't somewhat consent in this conversation. That's really troubling, actually. The ball kick loophole. We don't want that.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
It's the new internet trend. It's taking the world by storm, kicking Rob in the balls. Maybe we should move away from this. I don't know. I think we maybe unlocked some bad shit here. You know? We may have just unlocked some bad stuff. There's your MK Ultra trigger phrase. Rob has just created unlimited liabilities upon his balls. Let's just move away from this. One final plea. I got another 45 minutes to go in the stream. 9 out of 35 subs, so we're well on the way. One final plea. If you can, please subscribe. Help me make the little number go up. And I'm sorry for asking, okay? Believe me, I don't like it. Believe me, it's not my favorite thing to have to do, to obsess over the fucking little number every single day. Yeah, I don't like it any more than you do. The reality is, the number's got to go up. That's just how it works. Catalepsy has a right to defend themselves against Rob's balls. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. This hurts me more than it hurts you. It starts with the ball kicking. We got Rob on a Peter Coffin arc that'll end badly. No, we definitely don't want one of those arcs. How about a good old wedgie or a titty twister? What would be the like politically correct version of when you do this to someone's arm? You know, there must be like a name for it. That's not, you know. What would you call that these days? In Dutch, we call it a barbed wire, a snake bite, rug burn. Okay. White boy sunburn. I call it a snake bite. I know in like this would be, I would call this a Smurf bite. You get this little like thumb thing here and you go, and it's like a little pinch. It weirdly looks like a mouth and tongue like that, actually. That's kind of very creepy. Okay, well, let's move on. Kijiji, thanks for the $6.90. Oh, god damn it.
Here's my donation towards catalepsy kicking you in the balls.
God damn it. Okay, let's look at some of these DNC speeches. We'll look at some of these DNC speeches. We've set the stage with the absolute nonstop atrocities that Israel's been committing, totally subsidized by the Democrats. Now let's watch some of these standout DNC speeches from last night. The British accent really did sell that one for me too, yeah. Bowls. Very classy. Very, very classy.
And Congressman Jamie Raskin's on the floor. He said, "Welcome to the Future of Democracy Convention." Let's just dip in for a moment and hear what he's saying.
Raised by this sore loser who does not know how to take no for an answer from American voters, American courts, or American women. Remember what the mob chanted as they stormed the Capitol and injured our officers? Hang Mike Pence.
They were kind of cooking
Someone
with
should
that
have told
one.
Donald Trump that the president's job under Article 2 of the Constitution. Someone should have told Donald Trump that the president's job under Article 2 of the Constitution
Get it together, buddy.
is to take care that the laws are faithfully executed, not that the vice president is executed.
Taking a moment to get that one together.
Pence has now joined more than 24 officials from Donald Trump's own administration in denouncing him, an historical record. And Pence is the first vice president in more than 2 centuries not to support the president he served with in a general election. And by the way, J.D. Vance, do you understand why there was a sudden job opening for running mate on the GOP ticket? They tried to kill your predecessor. They tried to kill him because he would not follow Trump's plan to destroy and nullify the votes of millions of Americans. Your votes, Pennsylvania.
This guy's
Your
Jamie
votes,
Raskin.
Michigan. Your votes, Georgia, Nevada, Arizona. Are
Let's
we going to go
celebrate
back
Pence for the
to the
third year in a
days
row.
of election
We love Mike
suppression
Pence.
and violent insurrection? We're not going back.
Snakebite Decadent.
Well, 1 week after that beautiful day, as Trump calls
I
it,
hear you and I see
the
you.
Republicans, 10 Republicans, joined all of the Democrats to impeach Trump for the worst high crime and misdemeanor ever committed by a president, inciting insurrection against our own Constitution.
Is it the most high crime
Make no
misdemeanor?
mistake, a
There's
man
been a
who
lot of
uses
crimes.
fraud, theft.
There's been a lot of crimes committed in the Oval Office. Like, I get it. It was a big deal. Sure. You know, I think killing 2 million Vietnamese people is worse than that, though. I can't help but think that. Or like doing genocide against indigenous peoples, Native Americans. I think that's worse than January 6th, personally. Dropping nukes. Yeah, dropping nukes on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I think that was worse than January 6th, but, you know, we're splitting hairs here, I guess.
And violence to take power will commit any crime to keep it. And now Trump's promising to pardon hundreds of his fellow criminal convicts and insurrectionists. He calls for, quote, the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those in the Constitution. My friends, are we the people going to let Donald Trump terminate our Constitution and obliterate the blessings of liberty for our posterity? That's right, we're going to elect Kamala Harris. We're going to elect the career prosecutor and inspiring public servant and Coach Walls, and we're going to defeat Donald Trump, the career criminal. and
Trump stored
incorrigible
confidential files in the
recidivist
bathroom. It's worse than the
con man
Korean War.
and his pet chameleon, J.D. Vance. And America, let's make it a landslide so big that Donald Trump and his kangaroo Supreme Court justices cannot even try to steal it. Let's make every vote count. Let's make sure every vote is counted. Let's let freedom ring, and let's let democracy work in America.
He refused to retaliate against Iran. Exactly. He only assassinated one of their top military generals in an open act of war. I don't know. I mean, there were some decent zingers in there. He cooked him pretty good a little bit there. But yeah, you see those times when they're talking about January 6th like it's the worst crime ever committed, which is like an insane thing to say when you're talking about the office of the goddamn President of the United States.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Woo. Pac-Man. Oh my goodness, thanks for the 5 gifted subs. Now we're talking. Now we're talking. Thank you, Pac-Man. That's very kind of you. I really appreciate it. Very cool. Yay, cops. They keep the truth from invading the DNC. Exactly. Our brave cops. Our brave cops are bravely beating the shit out of anti-genocide supporters as we speak. Here's the next standout speech from Texas Rep. Jasmine Crockett. Our brave boys in blue. The brave little piggies.
Well, good evening, America! On November 5th, our nation will hire a president, a commander-in-chief, and leader of the free world.
Her fit does go pretty hard.
Let's compare their resumes, shall we?
I will cop to that. And
One
speaking of
candidate
cops,
worked at McDonald's while she was in college at an HBCU. HU.
January 6th should be disqualifying, admittedly. Yet here we are under a Democrat president about to have an election with Trump in it. So I guess it isn't. And Dems don't actually care. What other conclusion can you draw? James, that's a great question. It's a great question. I don't have a good answer for you.
Other was born with a silver spoon in his mouth and helped his daddy in the family business. Housing discrimination, that is. She became a career prosecutor while he became a career criminal. With 34 felonies, 2 impeachments, and 1 porn star to prove it.
That's kind of out of pocket. Like, do you need to, like, Stormy Daniels did them a favor by talking about this issue and you're kind of like denigrating her a little bit? Oh, he was with a porn star. Like, Jesus. I don't know if that's really necessary. Like, she did something actually very brave by talking about this. I don't think it was an easy thing to do. Like, maybe they can be maybe slightly more sensitive about that.
Career as an elected district attorney, attorney general, and senator, she's always worked for one client, the people. Meanwhile, he's a 78-year-old, lifelong predator, fraudster, and cheat, known for inciting violent mobs. Listen, y'all, he's only looked out for one person, himself. As women are dying, he is bragging about overturning Roe. And y'all know I come from Texas. And right now in Texas, come on, Texas. But right now in Texas, they want to institute the death penalty. That is a problem. While Kamala Harris is fighting for our reproductive rights to be restored. She is also the leader we need on the global stage. She helped secure the release of Americans wrongfully detained in Russia. At the same time, he cozies up to his role model, Vladimir Putin, And MAGA
He loves
holds
Putin.
legislation hostage here at home.
He wants to kiss
Critical
him.
resources
I've heard
to
they're
secure
gay
the
together,
border,
actually.
military aid to Ukraine, and even the Farm Bill. She's lived the American dream.
They like
while
to
he's
kiss and
been
hug
America's
each other.
nightmare.
And they're two men. Can you believe that?
America, looking at the two choices before you, who would you hire? Donald Trump or Kamala Harris? Kamala Harris has a resume. Donald Trump has a rap sheet.
He's leaning into the cop
She
rhetoric
presides
is
over
really
the Senate
a little
while
disconcerting.
he keeps our national secrets next to his thinking chair. Y'all know what I said that other time. In Mar-a-Lago. Well, Donald Trump wants to put our 1787 Constitution through his Project 2025 paper shredder and make every day January 6th. Kamala Harris is fighting to fulfill the promise of America. In the real world, this wouldn't even be close.
Hot Mala versus
But
criminal
this
Trump.
election is. Don't make a mistake. We are the underdogs in this fight, even though there is only one person qualified.
I still can't tell if they think Kamala has zero power right now and so her hands are tied on Gaza, or if she secretly was doing everything the last 4 years. It kind of seems like a little bit like they want it both ways, don't they? The top secret documents beside the toilet thing is pretty funny. It is funny, but I think it's also a funny thing to get really upset about.
One person who's done the work and who has delivered the results. And she needs you. She needs your one vote this November. Can we count on you? Some of you know a little bit of my history, some of you don't, so let me tell you. I was a public defender.
I mean, that's good. That's better than being a prosecutor.
I did criminal defense as well as practiced civil rights law for almost 2 decades.
Considering how much they
I know a
fetishize
good
prosecutors
prosecutor
in
when I
this
see
party.
one. Kamala Harris is the kind of prosecutor we long for in the cases like those of Breonna Taylor. Yeah. She was the first attorney general in the nation to order that her officers wear body cams, and she started the Back on Track program to reduce recidivism.
This is very revisionist history about Kamala's
Listen, y'all,
record
she
with
did all these
cops and
things
law and
because
order and
she
this stuff.
genuinely cares about people.
How many cops did she put away? That's a great
She sees
question.
each person as just that, a person, not a statistic. She's proven that since the first day she stepped into a courtroom and said what y'all already heard Hillary say, I did not copy off of her speech. I just want y'all to know. She walked into that courtroom and said, Kamala Harris for the people. And she meant that. Many of you know her credentials, but what I love about Kamala Harris goes beyond her resume, is that she sees the humanity in everyone. She's the only candidate in this race who is capable of empathy. When I first got
Except
to
for
Congress,
little Palestinian babies.
I wasn't sure I made the right
Of course.
decision. The Chaos Caucus couldn't elect a speaker, and the Oversight Committee was unhinged. I was going through all of this when I visited the Vice President's residence for the first time.
The vice president's
As I
residence.
approached Vice President Harris for our official photo, she turned to me and asked, "What's wrong?" Mind you, we'd never met, but she saw right through me. She saw the distress. I immediately began crying.
Okay.
And the most powerful woman in the world wiped my tears and listened.
Let's see some crying Robs. Bust out the crying Robs.
It's so hard for me to tell this story.
The body
She
cam
then-
thing did piss the cops off, which is good, but then Kamala didn't put any force behind it and basically let them just fuck around, randomly cover their cams or turn them off, etc. Sounds like the perfect liberal salute platitude. We'll enforce body cams with no actual measures to ensure that they stay on at all times or contribute to any positive changes happening.
Said, among other things, you are exactly where God wants you. Your district chose you because they believe in you, and so do I. I'm gonna stop. Okay.
And famously, nothing
The
bad
next
ever happened
month,
again. The
I went
LAPD
viral
was
for the first
defeated.
of many times to come.
The LAPD ceased
For
being
hitting
a,
Republicans with a dose
the
of
LAPD and other California police departments just ceased being basically violent gangs of fascist thugs immediately afterwards. Thank you, Vice President Harris.
their own medicine.
If there had been a proper primary, who do you think would have gotten the nomination if Biden hadn't run? I'm not sure, but I do think Kamala would have had a really good chance. There's been a lot of talk about, oh, no one voted for her and this. Like, I think coming from being vice president probably would have given her a lot of headway. I think there's a good chance that she would have won. LAPD was abolished under Kamala sounds like a GOP talking point. If only it were true, that would be fantastic. The LAPD is notoriously an evil, corrupt, violent criminal gang. So, yeah, that would actually be good if she did that.
Brief but impactful interaction gave me my legislative legs, and I've been running ever since. The question before us is, will a vindictive, vile villain violate voters' vision for a better America or not? I hear alliterations are back in style. We deserve better. We deserve a president who can be a bright light in a sea of darkness. One who will pull us forward, because we won't go back.
This is Rep. Jasmine
Amanda
Crockett.
Gorman said it best. There's always light if only we are brave enough to see it. If only we are brave enough to be it. Kamala Harris showed me that light. And America, when she is our president, together we will shine as that beacon of hope and freedom around the world once more. God bless y'all.
Okay, I don't know. I think it's really tough to come from this angle of being like a public defender, and I think people deserve a lot of credit if you're in that party and you're an actual public defender, considering the way like prosecutors and this with this law and order credibility have been fetishized for so long. Yes, it's slightly sped up. I'm trying to get through all this stuff. You know, I think that is impressive, but trying to make this case about Kamala Harris and her tenure as AG, I think it's a little bit dicey. Okay, now we got UAW President Sean Fain. And it's, frankly, I do think it's cool that he was invited to speak. I think that's significant. We've talked about the Biden administration's, labor credentials. There's not no story there. I think you can make a significant case for Brandon's labor credentials. And Sean Fain, like we've seen, has said some pretty fucking outrageous stuff. And it seems like a guy who's got really good values. I do think it's significant that he's speaking at this, you know? Fain is a piece of shit as a person. He was a real dick bag to some people I know personally. Well, I would believe it. I imagine rising all the way up to be some kind of a union, a UAW union boss. You probably are not that nice of a guy. It's, I don't doubt it. He does have a really strong class analysis, though, and we do need more of these kinds of voices. And that's, again, setting the table with the entire caveat about Gaza looming over this whole thing. We're wondering whether there's kind of an actual shift going on, whether there's some kind of actual progress being made. Obviously not on imperialism, obviously not on the border, obviously not on law and order, but are there other ways that we can point to where there's some legitimate progress being made?
Please welcome United.
Yeah, I did see the shit about UAW and their federal supervisors over Gaza. Yeah. But meeting them in the middle, I'm going to be still disappointed, most likely.
Auto Workers President Sean Fain.
I mean, remember, Trump was just on that X Spaces thing with Elon Musk last week. Talking about you just fire all your workers going on strike. I think that's probably pretty significant. Meet in the middle, aka the penis. What is with you people today? What is with you? Please. Jesus.
All right. Yeah.
Wonder if people will finally shut up about Fain speaking at the RNC, but he didn't speak at the RNC. It was the Teamsters boss that spoke at the RNC, right? It was the Teamsters guy who now has retrospectively been humiliated after Donald Trump talked openly about firing striking workers.
Thank you. Good evening, America, and good evening to the people that make this world move, the working class. On behalf of 1 million active and retired members of the UAW, I am honored to support Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to be our next president and vice president.
No one at the DNC is in the working class.
And
I don't really think so. Maybe the people serving the drinks.
Joe Biden for making history by walking the picket line with the UAW. For the UAW and for working class people everywhere, this election comes down to one question. Which side are you on? On one side, we have Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, who have stood shoulder to shoulder with the working class. On the other side, we have Trump and Vance. Two lapdogs for the billionaire class who only serve themselves. So for us in the labor movement, it's real simple. Kamala Harris is one of us. She's a fighter for the working class. And Donald Trump is
Democrats don't serve the
scam.
billionaire class.
That's not just my opinion, that's a fact. All we have to do is look at the track record. When Donald Trump was president, corporate America ran wild. Donald Trump did not bring back the auto industry. When Donald Trump was president,
We're
auto
chanting
plants
Trump's a
closed.
scab.
Trump did nothing. Trump told workers in Lordstown, Ohio, that he would be bringing all the auto jobs back. And Trump did nothing. In 2019, General Motor workers went on strike for 40 days for good jobs and a better life. And Trump did nothing. Talk is cheap. But in 2019, you know who was on the picket line standing shoulder to shoulder with auto workers? I'll give you a clue. Her initials are Kamala Harris.
Those are not initials, sir.
In 2023, who helped bring
That's
jobs
not what
back to
that means.
Lordstown, Ohio? Kamala Harris. And in 2024, who will stand with the working class in our fight for justice? Kamala Harris. And that's the difference. Donald Trump is all talk, and Kamala Harris walks the walk. Woo. In the words of the great American poet, Nellie, it's getting hot in here.
Chad doesn't seem to be buying this.
It's hot in here because you're fired up and you're fed up, and the American working class is fired up and fed up. The American working class is in a fight for our lives. And if you don't believe me, just last night, blue-collar workers, the UAW members at Cornell University had to walk out on strike for a better life because they're fighting corporate greed. And our only hope is to attack corporate greed head on. Corporate greed turns blue-collar blood, sweat, and tears into Wall Street stock buybacks and CEO jackpots.
I don't think the Democratic Party has ever worked for Wall Street. Can you imagine?
It hurts workers, it hurts consumers, and it hurts America.
Can you imagine
And corporate
Democrats
greed
working
is
for
alive
Wall
and
Street?
well in the auto
Unthinkable.
industry. You know, last fall, we achieved life-changing gains in our strike at the Big Three. We even won a commitment to reopen a closed plant not too far from here. We were able to do that thanks to the support of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and the thousands of auto workers that went on strike.
Then that strike was very significant. And he was leading
But a
the way
year
with some
later,
pretty great
one company wants
class-based
to go
rhetoric
back on
during
their
that
commitments in
time.
our contract. And let me be clear. Stellantis must keep the promises they made to America in our union contract. And the UAW will take whatever action necessary at Stellantis or any other corporation to stand up and hold corporate America accountable. And when the UAW stands up, we know who stands with us and who stands against us. Donald Trump laughs about firing workers who go on strike. And Kamala Harris stands shoulder to shoulder with workers when they're on strike. And that's the difference between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump the scab.
Shoulder to shoulder might be a little bit of an exaggeration.
Trump is pushing divide and conquer tactics of the rich. It's the oldest trick in the book. They want to blame the frustrations of working class people. They want to take those frustrations, they want to blame it on race. They want to blame it on LGBTQ plus people. They want to blame it on some destitute and desperate person at the border. They do that because they want working class people to be divided and to focus and keep the focus off the one true enemy, corporate greed.
I mean, this is the fundamental problem, right? Like, I agree with a lot of this guy's stances, but pretending that there's some vast difference, I think there is a difference. Like, to be clear, I think the Biden administration has been demonstrably better on labor issues. You can point to things that weren't good or that he didn't do. He broke that strike, didn't pass the PRO Act, which did have some like genuinely good shit in it. But like, that's like I keep saying, like the people that are connected to and cover the labor movement have talked about Biden's NLRB and have really praised it a lot. People that I trust to make this kind of determination. But then like trying to take that and suggest that now the Democrats are some like working class oriented party or that they don't serve the billionaire class. That's really taking it way too far, because like that's just like demonstrably not true. It's demonstrably not true that they don't serve this exact same billionaire class that this guy rails against all the time.
The rich think we're stupid, but working class Americans see this for what it is. This is our generation's defining moment. So I have a question for you. Are you ready to stand up, speak up, and show up and put Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the White House?
Once again, it's the most important election of your
We need a
lifetime.
defender
Yet
of the
again.
working class in the White House, someone who is one of us and someone who knows how to fight. And that fighter is the next president of the United States, Kamala Harris.
Yeah. Chat doesn't seem to be buying it. And I get it. I get it. Sorry, I'm kind of rushing through these. Here. Now let's hear from the woman of the hour.
Thank you, Chicago, for your energy. Thank you, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, for your vision.
It's funny having it sped up a little bit too. It's like they've all been blowing lines.
Thank you.
We're going to look at Hillary's. We'll try.
Thank you, Chicago.
I got to
for
go
your
in about
energy.
20 minutes.
Thank you, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, for your vision. And thank you, Joe Biden for your leadership.
This is building power, folks. This is what it is to build power
ago,
within the party.
I was taking omelet orders as a waitress in New York City.
A little bit
I
of
didn't
a
have health insurance.
embellishment
My
about her
family
backstory there.
was fighting off foreclosure. And we were struggling with bills after my dad passed away unexpectedly from cancer. Like millions of Americans, we were just looking for an honest shake. And we were tired of a cynical politics that seemed blind to the realities of working people. It was then, only through the miracles of democracy and community,
Hello, Chris.
that the good people of the Bronx and Queens chose someone like me to elect them in Congress.
Welcome, my son.
And America, in my
Welcome
heart, I know
to the
from that same
machine.
cloth of hope and aspiration, we will also elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz as presidents and vice presidents of the United States of America. I am here tonight because America has before us a rare and precious opportunity. In Kamala Harris, we have a chance to elect a president who is for the middle class because she is from the middle class. She understands the urgency of rent checks and groceries and prescriptions. She is as committed to our reproductive and civil rights as she is to taking on corporate greed.
What have they been really doing about corporate greed for 4 years? They've been kind of sitting on their ass for that one.
Ceasefire in Gaza and bringing hostages home.
That's the big applause line, the ceasefire. It means nothing. There's no ceasefire.
In Kamala
Completely
Harris,
fictional.
I see a leader who understands.
They're complicit in a
I see
genocide.
leader with a real commitment to a better future for
As I keep pointing out, as many others keep pointing out, there could be a ceasefire right now if they stopped sending weapons to Israel. They're not doing that. They're totally complicit in this genocide, and this ceasefire is totally fake. It's become a totally fake talking point. It never happened. And you know what? AOC's complicit in it too, because she's whitewashing it, using this kind of talk. She's only allowed to say ceasefire if she also says bring the hostages home. That's right. Not the Palestinian hostages that are being raped and tortured right now, though. Of course, they're going to stay. They're going to stay right where they are.
working families. And Chicago, we have to help her win. Because we know that Donald Trump would sell this country for $1 if it meant lining his own pockets and greasing the palms of his Wall Street friends. And I, for one, am tired of hearing about how a two-bit union buster thinks of himself as more of a patriot than the woman who fights every single day to lift working people out from under the boots of greed, trampling on our way of life.
She's really getting into that like fiery politician speak now. She's really changed her like rhetorical style, hasn't she? It was funny because she was a Biden dead ender too. She was like just a month ago or whatever it was. I've lost all track of time. Very recently, she was just like, what are we doing here? He's the nominee. She was like trying to keep him in there.
The truth is, Don, you cannot love this country.
I do remember that, James. That was very powerful.
For the wealthy and big business. To love this country is to fight for its people. All people, working people, everyday Americans like bartenders and factory workers and fast food cashiers who punch a clock and are on their feet all day in some of the toughest jobs out there. You know, ever since I got elected, Republicans have attacked me by saying that I should go back to bartending.
I don't know, Donnie Dear. I think she might be
Any
something.
day of the week, because there is nothing wrong with working for a living.
I don't think she'll crash and burn at 6%. I think she might be around for a while.
Having leaders in the White House who understand that. Leaders like Kamala and Tim. But Chicago, just because the choice is clear to us does not mean that the path will be easy. Over the next 78 days, we will have to pour every ounce, every minute, every moment into making history on November 5th. But we cannot send Kamala and Tim to the White House alone. Together, we must also elect strong Democratic majorities in the House and in the Senate so that we can deliver on an ambitious agenda for the people.
What's the likelihood that that's going to happen?
Because if you are a working parent trying to afford rent and childcare, Kamala is for you. If you are a senior who had to go back to work because your retirement didn't stretch far enough, Kamala is for you. If you're an immigrant family just starting your American story, Kamala is for you.
Unless you're a refugee trying to get across the border, in which case she's not for you.
America.
She literally said, do not come. Are those immigrant families? Do they count? Do they count as immigrant families starting their American story? She literally said, do not come. They're trying to pass a border bill that's to the right of Trump's Nazi border policies. Do those immigrants starting their American story, are they included in that or no? Kamala went to Westmount High School in Montreal. Can we get a wealth check on Westmount? No, that's not middle class. No, that is not middle class.
When we knock on our neighbor's door, organize our communities, and elect Kamala Harris to the presidency on November 5th, we will send a loud message that the people of this nation will not go back. We choose a new path and open the door to a new day, one that is for the people and by the people. Thank you. Thank you very much. God bless. God bless you all.
Do I have even time to watch this? I don't even know if I have time to get through all this. There she is. There she is. And you know, even though she might be hiding it right now, you know she's dying inside about this whole situation. She gets a big pop
Thank
too.
you all so much.
She warned us, folks. She warned us.
Thank you.
She warned us that Donald Trump was bad, and we didn't want to listen. We were all here saying he was good. We were all here saying, like, this, we love this guy. He's good, and we like him.
Thank you, my fellow Democrats.
I was wrong to think that Trump was good until Hillary warned us that that was not the case. Look at this pop, nuclear pop for Hildine. I feel great.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Wow.
The Butcher of Libya.
There's a lot of energy in this room, just like there is across the country. Something is happening in America. You can feel it. Something we've worked for and dreamed of for a long time. First, though, let's salute President Biden.
Two war criminals.
He has been democracy's champion at home.
I don't want to keep saying good things about Nancy Pelosi, but she had a hilarious quote the other day. There were some Biden loyalists that were like criticizing the move of Biden stepping down, and they asked Pelosi about it, and she was just like, "I don't care. I don't know who they are, but like we don't care." It's it's hard not to laugh sometimes. She was saying, "Thank you, Joe."
God.
Pelosi at the DNC chanting "Thank you, Joe" like a mob boss attending the funeral of the guy she whacked. It's ruthless out there. It's ruthless.
He brought dignity, decency, and competence back to the White House.
15,000 dead children in Gaza.
And he showed what it means to be a true patriot. Thank you, Joe Biden, for your lifetime of service and leadership.
At the end of the DNC, they're going to do this ritual at the end of the DNC. They're going to take him out back like Old Yeller and just put him out of his misery. While they chant, "Thank you, Joe."
And now we are writing a new chapter in America's story. You know, my mother Dorothy was born right here in Chicago before women had the right to vote. That changed 104 years ago yesterday. Think about it. Tennessee became the final state
They're going to drown him in chocolate chip ice cream. A bathtub
to
full of it.
ratify the 19th Amendment to the Constitution. The state legislature was deadlocked until one lawmaker's mother, a widow who read 3 newspapers a day, sent a letter to her son.
They midsummer.
No more delays, she wrote. Give us the vote. And since that day, every generation has carried the torch forward. In 1972,
Oh, wow,
a
Onyx, that's
fearless
interesting.
black congresswoman
Higher?
named Shirley Chisholm.
I don't have time to look at the Biden speech. I got to go in like 9 minutes.
She ran for president. And her determination let me and millions of others dream bigger, not just because of who she was, but because of who she fought for.
We dreamed of
Working
becoming president and
parents,
losing to a
poor
game show
children,
host.
The last, the least, and the lost. In 1984, I brought my daughter to see Geraldine Ferraro, the first woman nominated for vice president. If we can do this, Jerry said, we can do anything. And then there was 2016, when it was the honor of my life to accept our party's nomination for president.
She's so unlikable. Listen to the people cheering. Obviously, you're wrong about that. They love her.
And nearly 66 million Americans voted for a future where there are no ceilings on our dreams.
Apparently, there was still a ceiling, though.
And afterwards,
You blew it.
we refused to give up on America.
You blew it.
Millions marched. Many ran for office. We kept our eyes on the future. Well, my friends, the future is here.
Okay, I'm just going to skip to the end. Skip to the end, like in Princess Bride.
Worship as we choose or not. Lives, our loves, our families. The freedom to work with dignity and prosper. To worship as we choose or not. To speak our minds freely and honestly. I see freedom from fear and intimidation, from violence and injustice, from chaos and corruption. I see the freedom to look our children in the eye and say, in America, you can go as far as your hard work and talent will take you, and mean it. And you know what? On the other side of that glass ceiling is Kamala Harris raising her hand and taking the oath of office as our 47th President of the United States.
She could be like, peanut butter is fake because peanuts are a legume. And these people would scream with joy. You know, the peanut is neither a pea nor a nut. Ah! Oh, it is a nut. Okay. Discuss.
Because, my friends, when a barrier falls for one of us, it falls. It falls and clears the way for all of us. So for the next 78 days, we need to work harder than we ever have. We need to beat back the dangers that Trump and his allies pose to the rule of law and our way of life. Don't get distracted or complacent. Talk to your friends and neighbors. Volunteer. Be proud champions for the truth and for the country that we all love.
The United Snakes of America, Kaka.
I want my grandchildren and their grandchildren to know I was here at this moment, that we were here, and that we were with Kamala Harris every step of the way. This is our time, America. This is when we stand up. This is when we break through. The future is here. It's in our grasp. Let's go win it.
Oh, I wanted to hear the walk-off, the fight song walk-off. I don't know, there's a whole Biden thing too, but we don't have to... I don't think I have the time to get into it. I gotta go soon. Let's fucking go, no cap, says Hillary. Yeah, that was very powerful. Let's get our yachts in order. Donald Trump is totally Rizless. Let's edge our way right up to this November election date. Get Gooners ready. Can you dig it? Yeah, that's good. I don't know. Those are those DNC speeches. Chad, are you convinced? Are you ready to go? Are you fired up? Are you ready? They should have gotten the Rizzler to speak. No, I agree. Chad, are you fired up? Are you ready to go? Are you ready to not only vote for this party, but volunteer? Are you going to volunteer for this party? And are you going to go knock doors and ask your friends and family to go vote for this party? Were you convinced by any of this, chat? Are there any more lady cops they could trot up there that would really get me going? I'm sure they got a couple more up their sleeves here. AOC wants to be prez in 2032. That's all I learned. I mean, that is undeniable. I'm going to move to the US and join the fight. Exactly. Me too. I'm going to be voting illegally for this ticket. Many times over. I'm going to do a whole swing state tour. Did y'all catch the RNC too? Oh, I don't know.
You're gonna have good old Rob.
No, I think we watched some clips of it.
Play that HRC speech again.
Thank you, really chill guy, for the 44 months. I'm fired up. I got goosebumps. I got goosebumps right now. The fiery rhetoric. Make them build a northern wall. We should probably build it so they don't take our water in the upcoming race water wars. We should be building the wall to keep the Americans out. I'll put on my biggest shoulder pads and fight. Good. I'm glad Chad is fired up about this. Chad, I gotta go in a couple minutes. I gotta go pick up my kid from camp. I promised him he was there pretty early today. I promised I would go pick him up at 4 p.m. So I gotta get going in a couple minutes. We can reconvene tomorrow and talk more about this. I'm going to be recording a podcast with a really chill guy in a couple minutes. Well, an hour or so. But I got to go do that. So one final time, folks, if you enjoy the program, if you like tuning into this show, if you like the jokes and the conversations and the analysis and all the weird silliness, whatever it is, please subscribe if you can. I don't need to say to drive safe. I just have to walk. It's very close to where I live. 20 subs away from the goal. The ball is up in the air. The ball is up in the air. One extremely cool and badass 20 sub gifter could just come through, trigger the rarely seen 20 gift sub alert, and drag my ass across the finish line for today. Who's with me? Who's fired up? Huh?
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Huh? Thank you, Diego, for the gifted sub. Now I'm merely 19 to go. Crazy. Look at us, chat. Look at us. We're so close. It's achingly close. It's tantalizingly close. What's the big number at? The big number is not doing so good, actually. The big number is at 556. So we got a ways to go. Frankly, unless some brave hero wants to come through and donate 444 subs. If someone wants to do that, that would be really helpful to me. Goonishly close, that's right. Remember, Chad, it's the only way that I can keep the show on the air. The only way that I can keep the show on the air is if people subscribe. If the little number goes up.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Anon, thank you for the gifted sub as well. Thank you, Anon. Look at that, we're almost there. It's like halfway there. Should be no problem. Working on 400 gifties with the tubes really clogged. I know everyone's just dying to do that. Everyone's just dying to... They're all getting out their PayPal info and credit cards so they can subscribe to this show 400 times in the next, 2 minutes. That's what I'm saving up for every day at work. It's like, instead of a retirement fund, it's just it's just putting it all in one nest egg to blow on subs. Not blow though, because it's good, obviously. It's very good to do that. When I win the lottery, you'll know. There'll be signs. Okay, any other takers? I'm going to go ahead and raid out now. And I'm sure, obviously, the rest, we'll get the rest of the way there while the raid is queuing up. Not a doubt in my mind, folks. There's not a doubt in my mind. Any moment now. Any moment now, those are all going to come through. And it's going to be so epic.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to
Yeah,
talk you
that
through
starts
all
the
this.
avalanche. St. Lotus, thank you for the gifted sub. Very much appreciated. And the final 17 should be forthcoming any second now. How exciting will that be? It's funny because sometimes this shtick actually works. That's the funny thing about it. It's harder when it's 17, but it did. If people were here Friday, this shtick actually worked. It was actually really funny. Any moment now. It's happening. I'm just going to sit back and let it happen.